Good evening, everybody. It's late. So one of the plans that I had for this week was to try and get my kind of my home times as well as my stream times back under control. There's a bit of a a negative reinforcement that's been happening in terms of I'll I'll stream quite late, and then that's going to mean that my I get up later in the morning, and then that just translates into me sort of making up the time by working later. So I'm not off to a great start today. I think I may have enough to be able to still do a full stream while while still sorry. I'll still be able to do sort of a full stream while still getting enough sleep to be ready to to go into work at the proper time. But I am definitely going to try and get things under control for my own self. And then number two, I would actually like some more consistency in terms of the start times, because there are quite a few people who I really like having in the channel, and I realize that I'm sort of starting to isolate them a bit, in the sense that I'm just starting at times that are too late for them to be able to enjoy. So again, we'll stick with what we have today. I will do my best to do the full 3 hours. Normally when I say that, I'm able to do the full time. Whether or not it's a good idea is a whole other question, but I don't think anybody, I don't think people should be penalized for the behaviors of others. Patch 2024 11K1 featuring Chelnock. So this suggests to me that there's a bunch of coding improvements. So refill button is better behaved. Items that are moved from a table slot and can't return will now try to go somewhere useful and viable, and will jiggle enticingly if they can't go anywhere useful and viable. Autosave while camera move key depressed will no longer persist camera move. Shift clicking a card while on the bench could still sometimes soft lock you by sending it to the village. No longer. That thing where a card would sit inaccessibly in the middle of the screen until a reload, that thing should no longer happen. Text on I'm reading, I've read previews in English are no longer annoyingly small. This was more complicated than you'd think. And various typos, updated Chinese localization. Oswin Meow, lovely to see you. I had a bunch of sort of science talk and a couple of biology things that came up. Unfortunately, I don't really remember any of them, so I may have to save this for private messages, but I'm very happy to see you. Have you gotten a chance to play any House of Hours? It's House of Hours. In fairness, the developer has called it this. Or possibly Book of Light. Anyways, have you been able to play any Book of Hours since we last what was it? Sorry, have you had a chance to play any of the games since you were last in? Because I know you've been streaming it, but I don't know if you've been playing solo. Okay, fair enough. I was just kind of curious because I know I think the last time we were talking about some tantalizing possibilities in terms of books, which we may or may not get to today. I know I've got a different set of books in this playthrough than the YouTube stream. But anyways, I am particularly happy. I know I'm starting very late, and I've been trying to get my my bedtimes under control, which means I want to get my stream start times under control. And while that didn't necessarily happen today, there's always a bit of a reward when there's somebody you're happy to see inside of the channel. I hope you are doing well. I'll also just say off the top, I'll try and remember to say this at the end as well. It's going to be Remembrance Day. I think it's called Memorial Day in the States. Anyways, where I work, that is, I know it's a bit of a question in terms of where you live and where you work as to whether or not that is a holiday. For me, the day is off, so true to form, and I definitely do need a break. Sorry to put it that way, but yeah, because I could use a break, I am going to take the Monday for myself. As always, I take those days as a I have the option of streaming if it comes down to it. But I know it's less likely to happen just because I do need Veterans Day. Okay. But yeah, I need to recover a bit. And the other inconvenience is that I'm not going to be able to stream the following Monday as well. And then of course there's the third Wednesday of the month, which means that there is actually going to be a bit of a hole blown into the schedule for the next little while. So in addition to the next 2 Mondays, the 20th will also be a day that I'm not able to broadcast. I will be streaming. I'll be streaming on Wednesday and Friday, and of course the following Wednesday and Friday. It's really just that third week where there's the trouble. So hello, Cured. How are you doing? Okay, so what am I doing? We got through a salon. Did I figure out who I was going to invite last time? Because we can start working on that now. So I'm looking for a book with... Oh, yes, that's right. I was going to invite Connie Wakefield and the Kills. Just working all the time. Sounds like me. Kieran, are you... I think you had said that you were looking for a bartending job, but I don't recall if you were... I don't recall if that turned out or not. I get the impression you were at a new role, but... okay, so... Connie Wakefield and the Kills. Now, it's actually funny to me. I don't recall if the picnic has a particular set of requirements. Right, and it won't tell us until we go. So there's definitely some stuff that I can put together. Marrows are actually quite versatile, so I may settle for that. That will also mean that we've got the stuffed pale marrow now, but I don't know if I have a spare. But I may ransack a few of the vegetable sacks to... or actually, I can't do that in spring. Well, I'll work it out, but I am gonna host a salon. Oh, actually, it looks like we're all ready to go. That's right, I already have the pale marrow. Never mind. Ah, fair enough. Sorry to hear that. Kieran. Okay, sorry. I know it's always a bit of a struggle to get started on the stream. So we are opening up the trapped cell. A sign outside the cell reads, "Warning: Do not enter while safety measures are armed." We have a few more areas to open up. I need the honeyed forbidding at some point, as well as the gaping darkness. What else was I going to say? Yeah, I mean, so one nice thing is the world's my oyster as far as what I can do today. I guess I should probably... I just don't really know what I want to do next. I thought I gave myself a to-do list. I think I may have just done that for... may have done that for the stream, or the YouTube one. Okay, I'm going to take a minute here to just register where I am with my skills. It's great for you because if anybody tries to say anything about you doing a bad job, you'll just politely remind them that you can point out multiple violations at a glance and imagine what an actual inspection would find. Well, hopefully you aspire... Well, actually, I know there's some jobs where you don't necessarily aspire to do your best work, but I'm hoping that you can have a little bit more to drive you. But I do know for some people, having a job where you can take things easy is the perk, and then being able to dedicate the time to other things. I've never quite been wired that way, so it's a hard one for me. But my preferences are not necessarily the same as everybody else's. Okay, so it looks like the batches that I was working with, we had Wolf Stories, which needed 4, Path and Pilgrim, which needed 6, Stone Stories needed 5, Tridesma Hira needed 5, Edicts Inviolable needed 7, and then Applebright Euphonies 2, Rhyme and Remembrance 3, and Drums and Dances 5. Now, I'm most inclined to say that we should try Applebright Euphonies and Rhyme and Remembrance if I can. So the next step here is to see, can I find a book that will give me 2 of a skill that is either Grail or Scale. I also need to remember that I have the option of a Tower Rises and a Tower Falls, although it turns out that's just preliminal meter. Okay. So Sea Stories may actually do the trick here. Moon and Grail. It's level 8, so I think that'll give me 2. Same story with Desires and Dissolutions. On Imperfections would also give me the Sky. And Geminiad 2 would give me Pentiments and Precursors, but the Scale is going to be something that I need to hang on to. Okay, so here's what I think I'm going to do. Let's try reading either The Crossing to Noon or Intimations of Skin, and I'm going to just double check here to see what I want for Sea Stories. Have I already committed Sea Stories? Well, there we go. Crossing to Noon's an easy answer then. All right. And actually, I think this one you'll like because Osmond may like this because it has more Ava dual floor. So let's get to where... Oh, we're already... Oh, my goodness. All right. Never mind. We are reading the Larkabine Codex. Okay, that's fine. So that I'm going to use to... sorry, Osmond, I may actually I may have to pause the dual... Well, let's see if I can do more with it. I guess with... Well, if we're doing Rhyme and Remembrance... That needs 3 Moon and Winter. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna shoot for the Moon here. So I'm gonna do 1 with for exercises in the continuity of self. Techniques proposed by the Ostorium, the most inaccessible and upsetting of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree, for the persistence of memory after the body is discarded. So for this one, we will... I think I have to use the Quenchings and Quellings in this case. I don't know if I have enough... No, this will work. Toss a Whist in there. I can master this mystery. Enough Winter to match Mystery Winter. And because I do not believe in disappointing my viewers much, let's do the Crossing to Noon. And I think as far as Moon goes, Edicts Marshall's probably my best bet, but let's just see. No, Tridesma Hira also does the trick. So we can use really any old element of the soul here. So Moon, a culmination. I can master this mystery. Enough Moon to match Mystery Moon. Now we don't know what the weather is, so maybe I'm just going to hold off on hiring someone until we see that. What made that noise? Sorry, if you could just give me a second here. I want to make sure nothing scary happened. So many tabs. Because you... I think we're okay. Let me know if anything weird happens on the stream, but we should still be live. We should still be good to go. Okay, so yeah, we're going to see what the weather brings before we go any further. All right, a cloudy day. So this will help me with leveling up the various items. We've got our Wild Surmise. So I think the first thing that I want to do is work out exactly... I want to work out exactly how I'm leveling everything up. So one thing that I can do, I can chuck away some sand or quartz chunk, and that'll help us with the Rhyme and Remembrance. So let's actually take the time to work out exactly what memories and how tough it's going to be to level this stuff up. So Applebright Euphonies for 2. So that is going to become 6. Yeah, it's mostly just because all of my shelves are getting full up, and I'm a little conscious of the fact that there are these extended silences and just long periods where I don't do a lot in the game because I'm trying to organize the house. So I actually really don't like this. You may remember that I actually wrote a silly Reddit post kind of communicating someone who was like all about efficiency and piling all the books up on the bridge, but which I think it was basically a 50-50, like half the people upvoted it, half the people downvoted it, and Alexis intervened, called me a villain, and said that he tagged it fan work. If you haven't seen it, I'm very happy to share that link with you. That is one of my crowning achievements. But yeah, right now I'm using the bridge for storage. Did you mention Jonathan Swift? Oh, that's wonderful. Let me tell you about an essay called A Modest Proposal. I think there are worse things to have a reputation for than liking Jonathan Swift, but it's actually been a while since I've read Gulliver's Travels. So I also think I forgot one of the voyages when I was talking about that last in the channel. Ellen Ripley, wonderful to see you as always. We've got, well, I guess I have access to PUBG. The thing about Battle Royales for me is that I actually kind of have an appreciation for one of the things that they do quite well. That was something that I did during the roguelike dev subreddit does the complete roguelike tutorial. And there's, I actually do kind of like the idea of that early scramble to arm yourself. And I thought, I kind of took that, I was going to try and take that idea and sort of run with it a little bit in the do your free stuff sort of part of the challenge. And then I ultimately didn't have the time to implement any of the extra stuff that I wanted. The thing I don't like about Battle Royales in that sense, and there are a couple of other, like, so the Extraction Shooter sometimes does this as well, but like the whole premise of Battle Royale that really doesn't work for me is that you spend this time in this interesting part that most people talk about, and sort of the whole purpose of that game is to break that nice thing, right? That you have all of that effort, and that essentially the whole point of that game is to just sort of wreck it, and then the whole point, the whole thing that makes it successful is just to lower the friction of jumping into that next experience. So I actually tend not to like battle royales, although I am pleasantly surprised at how well it works in other things. So I actually really liked the Red Death mode in Civilization 6. I never would have guessed that Civ, of all games, would have one of the better battle royale. I mean, obviously it started as a joke, but it actually it holds up. I really enjoyed it. But yeah, there was something about oh yeah, no, it's great. It's they really did well with it. They also used some of the Beyond Earth assets inside of it, which I thought was a nice touch. What was I going to say though? But yeah, my relationship with Battle Royale is I did Fortnite Battle Royale once, and I think I got in like top 10, top 15, something like that. And I decided, well, you know what, for a first try in a Battle Royale, that's good enough. I've peaked and, finished off in the upper decile, or possibly the upper quartile. So, retired on top. Yeah, still dead, but there you go. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll try it sometime, but there's other things that I can put my time into. Hey, Wanderer Down. It goes. I'm a little slow. I'm a little slow getting started, but there are some very lovely people inside here. I think I should actually do. I know I'm probably still building up a little bit of a viewership here, but let me just take a quick minute to shout out Oswin Meow. If you like Book of Hours, Oswin Meow does not exclusively stream Book of Hours, and I technically don't either. However, I know I've been playing this game near constantly, and I've actually kind of, I'm trying to think of basically I'm just going to wind up saying the same thing over again. Hopefully it doesn't get too irritating to listen. Oh, again, no worries, Ellen Ripley. I hope you do as best as you can with those meetings. But yeah, stay well. We'll be in touch. But I will just say that Oswin, one of the nice little secrets about Oswin's stream is while I don't necessarily intend to plunder her broadcasts for for stream ideas, it's also one with a lot of games that I've actually really enjoyed watching her play. So Pentiment, Disco Elysium, House of Light, or actually I think you have the House of Light expansion. I know you have Book of Hours, but anyways. So Oswin's a lot of fun to hang out with. Hello, Vanguard Master. I'm sorry. I know I kind of dropped off the face of the earth after messaging you. If you can deal with some late submissions, I should be in touch and let you know my next free slot. That probably won't be until the end of the week. But thank you for stopping by. And yes, I hope the calls aren't too arduous. But anyways, Oswin started off as just to me at least, as a wonderful viewer, very thoughtful viewer. In fact, one of the highlights I will say of her stream is that she can be quite quiet, and that's also true inside of chat. But what I will definitely say is that Oswin really feels, and I don't know if she's like this in person, but it really feels like one of those people that if you can just draw them out on a bit of a subject, you will get some really original and very interesting thinking, and not just on a small subset of topics. It's actually I think she has some fairly broad interest. At the very least, gives the impression of having broad interests. I know there is always that danger of talking someone up too much, but I think in the case of Oswin Meow, it's earned. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun in her channel. One, for those of you that like Book of Hours, it's an opportunity to see somebody who's really engaging with it for the first time. And again, she's got that rare ability to be comfortable enough to just play the game. And if it's an entire session of reading books, that's fine, because she wants to understand the lore. And as a result, you get this interesting perspective on the setting. And as a result, I I get a lot out of it, even if I feel quite comfortable in the setting, just because it's neat to see someone else's perspective. And yeah, I quite like I quite like hanging out. But on top of that, she does have a more broad range of games that she plays lately. So I also get a chance to see other other things. It's a tough one, Osmond. I remember, like, not that I want to bring back horrible memories, but I remember streaming in 2016, and we were doing the game Political Animals, and oh man, that really, that was a downer. So, but yeah. Anyways, but yes, please do check out Oswin's stream. I know I sometimes have bad luck in terms of streamers. Like, I'll try and give these very generous shout outs and somebody turns out to be a jerk. But like I said, the fun of this stuff is to, you don't want to ruin it for as much as possible. I know I do sometimes break the fun for everyone else dealing with people, but yeah, I do think it's a stream that's worth checking out, and I do want to try and give people the reasons for watching them up. Promise to be a jerk to pay you back for your generous shout outs. That would break my heart, Oswald. You're the streamer who I actually really like. Again, as a person, like it's hard, right? Because sometimes people just don't want to watch for opinions. But like, because you are such a thoughtful and interesting person, if you were a jerk to me, that would probably cause me like a profound crisis in terms of wondering, what did I do wrong? Like, why did this happen? So, should probably eventually become an adult and not have to worry about others' opinions like that. But I'm a product of my insecurities. What can I say? Okay, so I'm sorry for the delay. I had a note ready to go here. Okay, so we had Applebright Euphonies. It's going to be Grail and Sky. So let's do the check here. So Impulses is Moth and Nectar. Hindsight, Winter and Scale. Intuitions are Moon and Rose. Patterns are Knock and Forge. Now Storms have Sky. So there's one. Wait, do I have... Shame on me for dividing my intuitions this way. Fear is Edge and Scale. Regrets, Winter and Forge. Contradictions, Edge and Moon. Foresight, Lantern and Forge. Gossip, Rose and Grail. Salt, Winter, Knock, and Moon. Secret Thresholds. Why did I not remember Secret Thresholds? I think Knock and Rose. But Satisfaction, which gives us Grail. Confounding Parables has Sky. Savage Hymns, Sky, and of course from there the Cheerful Ditty and Beguiling Melody. Solace has Sky. Revelation doesn't help me, and we already wrote down Satisfaction. And of course, there's also the other levels that we can do. So we're pretty good as far as the levels there go. Now, technically, we have Technically, we're actually going to have 4 moon to deal with, I think, but I only need 3 for rhyme and remembrance, so that is eventually going to go to 5. So this is where this starts to get a little interesting. So because when it comes to, what is it, moon and winter, so the confounding parable... Actually, there's not as much overlap as I thought there would be. That's good. Okay, so if I want to... Oh yes, and I also have taste as an option, but we'll set that aside for now. So we'll do the same exercise. Impulse, again, that's moth and nectar, so that doesn't help. Hindsight does, though. Intuition. Regret. Definitely contradictions. Okay. Salt. Oh, stolen secret. Confounding parable. Savage hymns, earth signs, solace, cheerful ditties, revelation, satisfaction. It's a bittersweet certainty. That definitely is one we can put in. So are you talking about... Let me just take a minute here. Like that? Okay. So we'll have a spare... we'll have a spare moon when the time comes. Or winter. So the answer, it seems to me, so number 1 is I definitely want to bring in a helper. So I think I'm going to bring in Mr. Kill in this case. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. And I think for starters, I want to see how many... Let's start by seeing how many slots I can work with. I think I'm actually also going to skip interacting with Crowcross Sands and the Moors. I'd really like to do that, but I think I want to focus on generating the memories that I need first. So I think the Confounding Parable and maybe the Savage Hymn are the 2 things that I'll make using books. And this is to avoid any of the duplicates that Mr. Kill may wind up giving me. So we were on to... I can't remember if it was Locksmith's Dream 5 or Snare of the Tree. I'll try number 5. Actually, I think... No, sorry, we did read Incursus recently, so Snare of the Tree, and then we'll go back to the other line. All right. Moving on. So from the confounding parable... Okay, so actually what I want to do right now is I want to work out all of the lessons that I can get from the projector and the phonographs, because that's going to matter. You should remember that Colors of the Liver I haven't actually read all the way yet. Oh no, hang on. Colors of the Liver is the only one I have read. Okay, and that gives me Revelation, so that's not relevant to what I currently need. So I can get both Cheerful Ditty and a Beguiling Melody from the existing phonographs, and so that's exactly what I'm going to do. We'll use Thyr's phonograph for this. We'll use the Shaft. And that's going to be Opening the Sky. They've mentioned Vero's work a couple of times in the salons. And then we will use the one with the Beguiling Melody. And that's the, the Lake Fusino recordings. Okay, so for the Applebright list that I came with, again, the Storm is something that I can potentially get from Mr. Kill, as with Gossip, Satisfaction, and then I did say I was going to get the Savage Hymns, so... So the remainder are elements that, or memories that I may get from conversations with Mr. Kill. Moving on. Now I do also have the potential, so things like Confounding Parables and Bittersweet Certainty and all of that. These are things that I can also potentially generate through crafting, but I don't, that's like too clever by half in that case. So I want to, oh yes, hang on. I also need to leave the Arab aside. And let's leave 3 Whist aside for the Rhyme and Remembrance. Okay, so Hindsight, Intuition, Regret, so Contradiction, Salt, and Bittersweet Certainty are the ones that I can generate on my own. Now one of the drawbacks here is I imagine there's going to be some duplication in terms of what I get from the main texts. Hey, Momoko, going to class, but I saw you live and wanted to stop by and say hi. Morning. Hello to you and you. It's sorry. Hello to the both of you is what I mean. It has been a while since I've seen Kite, so I think you may see him before I do. But it is lovely to see both of you. I hope you both have a great day at school. And if you do see Kite, please tell him hi from me and that I am thinking of him. So. I'm sorry to turn you both into messengers, but I know you both get along very well with him. All right. Thank you very much, Yuhana. It's lovely to see you as well. Okay. Sorry, I got turned around. Okay, Deaths of the Moon was Salt. Yes. So we need a contradiction. And I actually think I'm out of desks at that point. So the last one that I want... Oh, no, hang on. Vagabond Desk. So we can get our Bittersweet Certainty from Glimmerings. All right. So there's going to be lots of reading when the time comes. But until then... Oh, yeah, sorry. I also need to think about what... No, you know what? I'm just going to sit on these elements. Whatever's left over at the end of the day, I'll turn into vegetables or something. The coffin maker's assistant, a tamer of trees, a worker of woods, a consigner of cadavers. He has also been known to try his hand very diffidently at poetry. So we're just talking with Mr. Kill. That's the only thing that we're going to worry about for today. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Add something to enhance Mr. Kill's effectiveness for the day, or just talk. Unlike some assistants, Mr. Kill can make use of wood. All right, we are on to the long cell. The few long at Brandkrug were kept in cells triple buttressed with silver and steel and sanctioned spells. The Bureau knew their weaknesses, but never relied on them. This cell last housed 2 immortals, an edge-long dyad. This would have required not only a ferocious and eternal vigilance, but also frequent replacement of shattered furniture. So we do have 2 books that I can catalog, but I'm going to do that at the end of the day, because right now I want all of my elements of the soul to go towards the memories. As far as the other items are concerned, first of all, we got a nice little edge symbol here. We have got the guest bed, the long cell, a bunk bed constructed for 2 immortals who can neither be together nor apart. So scale, lantern, edge, and heart, and it's an edge bed. Like I said, we've got the Nocturnal and the Curia period books. Mushrooms. And then in terms of items, we have cudgels, Degu and St. Trog, very old iron cudgels, recently and heavily padded. Wasters, Darling Deer and Father Turk, wooden swords of recent manufacture, never used. And Bakken, Captain Torg, and Mistress Deerday, souvenirs from the East, heavily padded. Correct. Okay. So we'll let the... I'm sorry, did I just lose my mind here and not... No, sorry, there's the loss. Okay, it's like... I thought I put the clouds to the far left and then the loss. I've had some long days at work. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So, not too much use from the foresight, but really the idea here is we're just taking the the cost of one element of the soul for the potential of more than one memory that I need. All right, what ship lost this? I think I'm just going to let that hang out on the bridge for, in the library for a little bit. I've kind of started to get a bit paranoid in terms of available elements of the soul. So, time to read some stories. The Snare, the Tree, Collected Proverbs of Aunt Mopsy. Once in the wood we call a visit, twice in the wood we call a journey, thrice we call coming home. Every timber has its knots, the straight and the crooked both. Every weave is more absence than thread. You can't keep nowhere out any more than you can keep somewhere in. When the cuckoo learns the nightingale's song, our sleep is sweeter than honey. All right, another confounding parable. So again, the drawback about sort of trying to front load some of the memories that I had. Oh no, actually, sorry. Snare of the Tree was one that I'd already read. Okay. Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king, Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second, unsettling, febrile. The third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnibulous icicle rattle. I think tintinnibulous actually means basically icicle rattle. I'm going to just double check that again because it's definitely not one that I use in my daily use. Actually, here's a question for you. Has anybody here heard of the Flesch Kincaid readability score? There's the Flesch readability score, and then there's the Flesch Kincaid one, which both of them were developed for the U.S. military, but I believe the Flesch Kincaid was Navy. Oh, sorry, not ice. It's bell. Of pertaining or resembling the tinkling of a bell, having a tinkling sound, tintinabular, which I don't think it's appropriate to say tintinabular when describing tintinabulous. But there you have it. And actually, come to think of it, I believe that would be covered in the half shorter Oxford Dictionary that I have. As long as it's letters through N through Z, I can cover it. But anyways, the reason you're going to find an excuse to use this word tomorrow? Oh, wonderful. There's a guy who I used to work with. This was back when I worked in movies. And I worked in camera, which basically means you're always working, right? You're setting up the shot, but you're also shooting the shot. And the head of the camera department is the director of photography, but very rarely do you spend a lot of time. Like my major interactions with most directors of photography was, I do talk a bit. So, they enjoyed the chat. And I was obviously, when you're starting off in something, you're still excited. You're not jaded. So you kind of get to talk about, what they do. And that's a really good opportunity if you do your job well, it's a really good opportunity to learn the tricks from the seniors. If you're just a waste of skin, then first of all, you'll probably be fired. But second of all, if you're unpleasant to be around, they're not going to want to tell you the secrets. But yeah, effectively, I would fill out their timesheet, and they're spending all the time with with sort of the visuals, and that's going to be spent with the electrics, the lighting, and the grips, who basically put the things in front of the lights to sort of shape the light and such. And I remember there was this one grip who we would work with, and it was really obvious when he learned a new $5 word, because he would just run around using it all the time. So there was when he learned the word obsequious, he must have used that word 25 times a day. And I will give you a hint. Film sets may provide opportunities for obsequious behavior. I am not entirely sure there are that many opportunities to use obsequious that many times. And there were a couple things about him that kind of grated people's nerves a bit. So I remember some of the people on the camera truck complaining about it at some point. And someone had sort of suggested this, System Shock's a bit like that. And so he said, no, he knows what those words mean. That's how he talks. And it did feel a bit better. Now, of course, this is the context of a camera. Camera is a cool department and all of that. But in the end, I was a reasonably well-paid mover, right? I was picking up heavy things and putting them down again. I was not exactly... I'm more of a knowledge worker now, and so I'm sure by the standards of people who play Weather Factory games or people who... people who do my kind of work, I'm sure I have a perfectly average vocabulary. But in any case, the reason why I brought up the Flesch Kincaid score, I'll actually find the exact formula, because I think this is kind of neat. But basically, I think the origins of this came from so originally the Army, and there was sort of this reflection of the fact that the publications that they were making were unreadable. that essentially it was written at a level that you could not expect you could not guarantee that the intended audience would be able to read it. And so in this case, there was first a flesh reading ease score. So I think it went from 100, but I think the scale was supposed to be 0 to 100, but I believe you can actually get to negative numbers as well. And it's a descending scale. So like at 100, you're at like 5th grade. And then when you get to 0, it would basically be you are expected to be a university graduate. That is about the only audience that will read this. That would be considered extremely difficult to read. So I'm consulting the Oracle here, the Wikipedia. So in this case, they gave Reader's Digest a readability index of around 65. So that would put it at the 10th to 12th grade level. The Harvard Law Review wound up at the 30s, so that's college graduate, very difficult to read, best understood by university graduates. And then they gave the highest score possible is 121.22, but only if every sentence contains one-syllable words. The Cat Sat on the Mat scores 116, and Moby Dick 57.9, so that would put it to 10th to 12th grade, fairly difficult. Makes a note here, U.S. Department of Defense uses reading ease to test the standard readability for its documents and forms. Florida requires that insurance policy have a flesh reading ease score of 45 or greater. Now the Kincaid one, I kind of like this, and I think if you have a somewhat recent version of Office, I don't think mine does. I'm actually going to take a second to find out, because I can open a blank document. Okay. Oh man, I spend way too much time in 365 now. This looks completely foreign to me. Okay. There's usually a few little secret features. Just one more second. That's a shame. So I know they give you the word count. The instructions that it's giving me here, I could have sworn 2019. So I'm going to spend one more second on this. So yeah, there's an accessibility assistant here, but it doesn't seem to... actually give the score. Oh, here we go. It's in options. I'm just doing this so that I can take examples from... There we go, show readability statistics. Okay. Cool. So let's find... Oswin's chat here. So first of all, I'll bring this up. So go see Stop Rest Flesh reading ease score of 100. Flesh Kincaid grade level 0. No passive sentences. Whereas, oops. Oh, okay, apparently Oswin's is also a reading ease of 0. I'm gonna doubt this. Maybe that doesn't work. All right, I should have. Actually, I wonder. Maybe there's one more thing I can try with Book of Hours. The whole reason for me bringing this up, by the way, is like far in the rearview mirror, but I'm kind of curious now. So let's see. Oswin, could you name a favorite book in Book of Hours? But while we do that, I'll just I'll explain how this works. So this came up when I was talking with a colleague at work. So we went to a presentation, The Jules Book by Ava. Oh, that's a good one. So I believe that is Ava's Treasury. Don't do this to me. There we go. All right. So, by the standards of the Flesh and Flesh Kincaid reading, so we have Flesh reading ease 61.9, and that's, remember, closer to 100 is easier to read, and Flesh Kincaid grade level 8.6. So overall, that would be, I'd say that would be a relatively good score, going by the formula here. 60s. Actually, that's kind of interesting. So by the standard of the Flesh reading ease, it says 10th to 12th grade, fairly difficult to read. So does better on the grade level. So you may wonder, why is that the case? In this case, the formula for the number, it's 0. Yeah, you know, I use a different tool, but actually I've begun to really appreciate I think this is probably just the work that I do. I've really actually begun to appreciate a lot of the things that the Office Suite provides you. You know, I realize that there's open options. There's, you know, Google Docs. There's the Open Office stuff, but I don't know. I already have Word, so I'm perfectly happy to keep using that. So the Flesh Kincaid grade level, the formula goes, you take 0.39, and then essentially you sort of divide the total number of words by the total sentences. So it's kind of the density of your sentences you can sort of think of. And then you add to it, and this one has a huge coefficient by comparison, 11.8, and in that case it's the total syllables divided by the total words. And then you subtract 15.59 from that. So remember, the Flesh Kincaid grade level is an effort to adapt the original Flesh reading ease score. So the Flesh reading ease score is 206.835, and then you subtract 1.015 divided by, of the ratio of words to sentences. So that's the same value there, although has a higher coefficient. Although I guess relative to the final number, that's maybe a separate issue. And then you subtract 84.6, and then total syllables divided by total words. So in this case here, if you use, technically yes, but that would actually, more verbose wouldn't be sufficient on its own, because if you actually have very short sentences, you would not be as penalized as heavily. But if you have very long sentences, so if you have like, if your average sentence length is 50 words, that's going to be higher. But if you use lots of polysyllabic words, that's going to be penalized quite heavily and very specifically in the Flesch-Kincaid score there, because it's, again, the coefficient of 11.8. You need to write a lot of words before you start dominating the syllables. So one of the things that is an interesting comparison, and it's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to do this. So we did Ava's Treasury, but because we have tintinnabulous in the word, I actually kind of want to see what that does to the score. But anyways, the reason why this was on my mind was we did do a presenting course. My coworker did a follow-up course on writing, and either I'm too proud or I kind of knew where the wind was blowing to avoid. Sorry, just one second here. I sort of I decided to skip that one. I had other things to do anyway, and apparently they were not too happy with the course. But I explained a couple of things. So one, I talked a little bit about some of the. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, it's Ellen Ripley. Thank you for gifting the sub. I'm always happy when people gift subs when I'm being completely tedious. Thank you so much. And Oswin, please enjoy using those emotes in good health. Enjoy them in good health, rather. All right, so let's get back. So anyway, we'd collaborated on a document. I talked a little bit about some of the features inside of Word, and because we were talking about writing and the way that you can measure these things, I just mentioned the Flesch-Kincaid score. So we're going to do Ava's Treasury again. Ava DeWolf, Last of the Brandkrugs, discusses the occult and aesthetic properties of jewels and other precious minerals. Black nephrite and scolecite for nowhere, orichalc and amber for yeas, amethyst for the night key of the spider door. Ava points out, bitterly, that there is no shortage of uplifting parables and proverbs about the saving graces of a flaw in a jewel, but that no one, not jeweler, nor priest, not our, has ever found a way to repair such a flaw. And so, by reading ease 61.9, and then Flesch-Kincaid grade level 8.6. So we will compare that. Unfortunately, I can't keep the readability stick. Actually, let's just double check that. Nope, I can. Nope, maybe I can't. All right, so remember that here, 61.9 and 8.6. You're going to gift sub every time you rolled your eyes in this meeting, but I'm scared you'll end up homeless. Yeah, please don't do that. There are more efficient ways to ruin your life. More fun ways to ruin your life, too. Okay. And this one, I'm actually a little surprised by this. So, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king, Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second, unsettling, febrile. The third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong, they recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction that the Bureau does not permit. So this is apparently, in terms of reading level, slightly easier than Ava's Treasury. Which I guess is why I rely on the actual calculations rather than the than my intuitions on these things. So probably that one word was not worth completely halting the stream for it, but I'm glad that at least a couple people enjoyed the digression on readability scores. I also just think it's cool that those exist. Unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Menascate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrugad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Menascate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Menascate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. Ah! Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of Oniric irresponsibility and confined to the Cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of Oniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brankrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone. This is for the other one. Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. When the heart no longer beats, the grail may keep the spirit in the body, and an appetite is indicated to sustain. Alukites are the best known, but not the only of this nature. This is the waning moon mode. The full moon mode is the intensification of one element of the soul to the point where ordinary sustention is unstable. Our protector, the generous of hosts, began of this nature, and its generosity remains ungentle. It is possible for the body's health or the heart's core to outpace the other elements, so that a static mode becomes impossible and growth proceeds in dramatic stages until balance remanifests. Oh, I'm very happy. I know you have more than one cat. Was that the Oswin of Oswin now, or is that the other one? But I'm very happy for the cat's contributions. Hello, Oswin. De Bellis Mirorum, an 18th century epic poem by the pseudonymous Solipstos. The poem elliptically describes a war between beasts, weather phenomena, and arcane concepts. It's quite specific about their tactics. The two one joined and the horned distinguished, consequently blood. And Lake Fusino recordings of the folk dances of the Fusine marshes. Wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These were the songs that the sister sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs with which the Duendrazons of the Mansis keep their vigil. What's heard, they are not forgotten. Okay, so I did say there was one other one that I wanted to get. Let me just double check that. So we got Confounding Parable, Savage Hymn, Beguiling Melody. We have Contradiction, Salt, Odd. I really thought I was missing one. One last thing I can do is I can read the Sun Disfigured. So it's maybe a little much to use a Newman, but I have it available. Should probably use the Trist first. I always really like the title music for this game. I think in the beta there was a bug that stopped you from actually being able to quit, or not the beta, the demo. I think there was a bug that stopped you from being able to actually quit out, and I just said, could you please leave this wonderful feature in? I don't really want to, I really don't want to leave the music anyway. All right, Crack Track. In the tracks of Beast and the convulsions of his own carapace, in Egg Vein and Shell Shadow, the many-eyed one found the signs which can be history. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Should probably move the clouds and the memory loss to the right side. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie, with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. All right, so this is the reason why we hold back on these sometimes. We've got the frivolous but tasty gossip. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry, doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. Although hopefully he gives us something else. And like I said, this is probably not the most efficient way to do today, but because I'm going to have so many elements of the soul, and because we're right on the edge of a new season, I'd kind of like to make sure that I have everything squared away before potential badness happens. I don't think there will be any problems, but it doesn't hurt to have a little safety. Hey, hindsight. And again, there's going to be a little bit that's lost as the books get finished, but I try, where I can, I'm trying not to consult any external references, including my own spreadsheet. It's not a hard rule. Like if it's convenient, I'll look it up, but if I can, I'd like to take it as it comes. All right. So we have the Larkabine Codex. Christopher Larkabus claimed to have purchased 2 handwritten copies of the Codex from a family of witches on the shores of the Sea of Marmara. A third was given to the sea. The sister and witch came from the west, where they were born in 2 wombs. One a princess, one a monster. Nevertheless, they loved each other from birth and met in secret to seek union. When the great drought came, the kings of that land tried to sacrifice the princess and the witch, so they sailed across the sea. When despair took them, they flung themselves into the drowning waters, and so found the Painted River, where they entered the Mansis through the offices of the Red Grail. Nevertheless, the Codex ends with the condemnation of the Grail. This is the Larkabine Codex. So Christopher Larkabus claimed to have purchased 2 handwritten copies of the Codex from a family of witches on the shores of the Sea of Marmara. A third was given to the sea. And it looks like... Oh, now this is only 1 sea story, so that's going to play around with our order a bit, I think. Or no, I think I already planned that. And it looks like one of the other books has the memory from this thing. So I'm just going to set this aside. Exercises in the continuity of self, techniques proposed by the Ostorium, the most inaccessible and upsetting of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree, for the persistence of memory after the body is discarded. Oh, interesting. Definitely very... Well, actually, I guess you said you already like Moon. So yeah, Oswin is very, very Moon and Grail. Which is great, because there's actually a whole bunch of Moon and Grail ones. There is Sea Stories, there's Desires and Dissolutions. What were the other ones? Oh, was it only 2? I feel like there's a lot... I keep running into a lot of Moon and Grail. Maybe I just overused Desires and Dissolutions too much. Anyway, the sea has always been the widest road, and the boundaries between flesh, pearl, and pleasure are equally contingent. Anyways, exercises in the continuity of self, techniques proposed by the Ostorium, the most inaccessible and upsetting of the libraries of the Watchman's Tree, for the persistence of memory after the body is discarded. The soul element whist is regarded as the fundamental value of the individual. All other soul elements, it is implied, may potentially be discarded, as can the individual self. The Austorium expresses grudging respect for the hour called Elegist, who calls each of the dead by name, but also concern over the Elegist's subtlety when it chooses to inspire particular interpretations of histories. The Austorium proposes the use of nowhere energies in distracting or discouraging the Elegist in order to assure the persistence of history remains unalloyed. Sorry, I just need a second here to get back into my tablet. All right, so there's the 2 Rhyme and Remembrance and a Memory Hindsight. So it's a replacement for what Mr. Kill already gave us, but like I said, we kind of knew that was a possibility when we did this. Foresight, I think Hindsight is one step above. Patterns, Storms, Intuition Sphere. Well, shoot. Running out of space. I am going to do a proper reshelving session, but I want to try and make a little more progress before I do that. And finally, the one that Ozzin's been waiting for, The Crossing to Noon. The mystic, Garcia Sowry, gives a picturesque account of the adventures of Franklin Bancroft, Prince of Wines, and Ava de Wolf, the Pale Lady, on their way to the hidden island of Noon. For a long time, the Blackbone pondered her next move, until the moon dared to peep from behind a cloud, and the prince completed the composition of his third sestina. But the lady met the blind gaze of its open pores, waiting for the tide.
I would never want to belong to any club that would have someone like me for a member.
Thunderclap Sasquatch, the percussivant name if I've ever heard one. Thank you very much for that follow. Garcia Sowry acknowledges in an epilogue that it is widely known that Ava in fact tragically drowned herself and that her twinned infant granddaughters without ever making such a journey. But, he adds contemptuously, it is also widely known that the city unbuilt will so remain, that only one history is ever written, and that Janus is a Mansus prank. Alright, so also got another salt. You are a simple man. I see secret histories. I follow. Well, it's very much appreciated, Thunderclap Sasquatch. I don't know if that is a deliberate percussivant reference, but I love the name. Even if it's not a secret histories reference, I love the name. And thank you for not just supporting me, but for supporting secret histories games. Obviously, they're very special ones, and I think the developers are definitely real. They've been very kind to me. I'll say that for sure. So, but I think there is also something really nice about the fact that this game does have a pretty interesting community. And for the most part, one thing that I remember about YouTube once upon a time was that when this is always a comment I'm a little careful to share about, but you all seem cool. So once upon a time, it used to be the case that when I would get a comment from YouTube, it would be something where I'd sort of have a bit of a defensive reaction. Like I'd just sort of feel a bit of a sinking in the pit of my stomach, and I kind of have to brace myself. Because there were a couple of videos that did get picked up by the algorithm, but they kind of got caught up by the algorithm as like hate videos. So like people spent time... oh, that's funny. Yeah, because it definitely sounds like a name that could be for the percussivant in Cultist Simulator. But yeah, so this was, and I mean, this is the thing, right? You know, I don't technically have to stream, but then again, those people also don't have to be jackasses. And then Cultist Simulator kind of happened out of nowhere. I'd been streaming the game for a while because I'd played it as this prototype. But obviously, I don't think anybody, including Weather Factory, was really expecting that game to be as popular as it was. I mean, it's worth remembering when Cultist Simulator first came out, that was #1 on Steam, like at the very top. And then the first Steam broadcast that we did, the only reason we were not #1 at the start was because there was a Dota tournament going on. So it's like, okay, you know what? We'll let Valve have the top slot on their front page. Now they don't do the front page streams anymore, but just the idea of the number of people that wound up finding like this weird little game seems to be completely beyond what the normal expectations for something like this would be. But what's really unexpected. And again, I think this is probably, I know Weather Factory have talked about this in the most recent blog that they put out, actually, right? This idea that if you make a game that sort of doubles as a reading comprehension test, you get a bit more relaxed kind of audience. And again, I don't want to overstate it. Like, there's always going to be some people who kind of spoil it for others. But the one thing that did slowly happen over the course of Cultist Simulator was that these nice comments would sort of come in. And, you get the backseating stuff like that. And, I'm quite clear with those in terms of saying that's not cool. But, those are a distinct minority. And it quite literally has transformed how I react to YouTube comments. Like the unkind ones are the exception. I think over the last couple of months, there was a little bit of a rough patch, but like the fact that I do not react the way that I used to, like the fact that I don't need to brace myself before I open something that I see from YouTube, is actually something that was very clearly driven by the audience that the Secret Histories brought in. And it's something that I really appreciate. So again, I'm sorry to give such an extended little digression on this Thunderclap Sasquatch, but it is one of the real perks of this, right? Is that when people do follow based on the game, I know my style is not going to be for everyone. Like, not everybody's I may get the follow, but people may not stay, and that's just kind of the way that these things work. But I do think it is worth mentioning that this is, so one, these communities don't happen by accident. I've said this about Cryptid the Necrodancer and Brace Yourself games. Like there is a specific cultivation that happening. So there's a lot of work that the community managers do to make that happen. And I think it's all the more impressive that Weather Factory have been able to do this, because it is a 2-person team, right? If you are interacting with Weather Factory, very likely you are interacting with 50% of the studio at any given time. So anyway, we are now ready to start putting in some work. So I think probably what we want to focus on first would be the Applebright Euphonies, because those are a little harder to get back, just because we have so many points. Although I am a little perplexed. I suspect probably the Larkabine Codex would give salt. But we'll test that later. So I just need to double check. Okay, so Applebright Euphonies, I actually just needed 2 grails. So I have 1 more than I needed. And apparently I have... Oh, right. No, the moon will take me up with Rhyme and Remembrance. So yeah, it all evens out. We're good. Okay. So Applebright Euphonies was 4. Yeah, and we're taking it up to 6. And for some reason, Sea Stories is in the wrong slot here. That or I haven't moved Sacralamea. Okay, so Cheerful Ditty, Savage Hymn, Beguiling Melody, Gossip because Mr. Kill may replace that. Sea Stories, Arab, we're good to go. You turned your entire friend group onto Cultism, including the one currently training to become a priest. That's really interesting. I'm curious what they think of the priest DLC, because I know that's not the most popular one, but I actually thought it's probably one of my favorites out of the series. It's funny too, because for my own background, my aunt just recently retired, but she was an Anglican priest, and she was the kind. So I get a lot of secondhand. I'll say secondhand moral panics. So when I got into Magic the Gathering, she found out about it and like really pushed my dad to like be no, he can't play Magic. It'll open a gateway to hell and suck him straight in. And then, same thing with D&D, and it's like, oh, and they're owned by the same company. So it was definitely very interesting to try and explain to her, this thing that, because like I actually got to meet one of the developers in Montreal when I was visiting last. So it's when I actually did some of you may know that that network graph that I've done of Cultist Simulator. That was actually that trip I made the first draft of that graph. So it was very interesting to try and explain the reason why I was visiting. But it was kind of fun too. So I actually don't necessarily see any incompatibilities with what's in this game compared to somebody's actual real life faith. I think there's probably enough variety and interest in here. But on the other hand, right, you're also dealing with a very broad range of thoughts and beliefs when when you're saying that somebody is trained to become a priest. So if you have a very rigid set of beliefs for these, then yeah, probably they're going to have some problems with the game. On the other hand, I think some of the ideas of the Nazarene Messiah, the Gospel of Zacchaeus, and things like that, this stuff does have some precedent in the sense of, obviously not all of the Gospels that we read or that are in the Bible are the ones that we have access to. There was actually an entire process through which these things were worked out, and I kind of feel that that's an interesting tip of the hat to that idea, and it sort of adds a bit more flavor. It's a little bit like Kanazakis's The Last Temptation of Christ, right? It's the sort of thing which you can imagine there would be protests about, and there were. But on the other hand, you can have people who are of very sincere and devout faith who also find it a really interesting account. You still have no idea what's going on with this game, though. What's the journey is the important part. All right, so we can do the Invisible Opera. Use the shop for that. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So that's going to get me my cheerful ditty. So we already did the Lake Fusino recording, so we'll get the beguiling melody from one of these three. I think we'll start with the Wind's Ruin, although I know I've done that a couple of times already. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. And Singlefoot songs. So we should have 4 of the 5 that we need. So I just need 1 more Grail or Sky. Oh, and we're doing the Sun Disfigured, so we'll actually have we'll have everything that we need. I'm actually kind of curious, Oswin, and this is open to anyone, because I know, but I'm actually specifically asking Oswin here because I know she really likes to figure things out on her own, but this is another thing I haven't really talked about enough on your stream. I do feel you do a really good job of being able to find that balance between allowing people to talk about the game while still also preserving your own interest. Like, I noticed that you've sort of been able to incorporate backseating without it getting to a point where it ruins the game. Or maybe I just catch you at good times. But that's another thing, especially given how I struggle with it on my own side. That's another thing you do well. So again, I don't want to pull away from whatever whatever you want to get out of it yourself. But is there something you feel like you should understand up to the point that you're at that you haven't? Because I'm happy to try and nudge in interesting directions if you feel like there's something you'd like an answer on. This is a scroll, a book with a very long page. The Sun Disfigured, a scroll of anthropoderm parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. The author of the text calls herself the Elegabline. Sometimes she seems to be Sunset Celia, the Watchman's name. Sometimes she seems to be Lady Tryphon, the Grail-Long. It is unclear whether these are separate entities or the same person. It may be unclear even to the writer. The flaws in the Sun's plan are elucidated. The Sun's plan itself is never entirely clear, but it is a project of some kind to enter, possess, or surrender to the glory, the pure light above the Mansus. This book suggests ways in which that plan might fail. The Sun's weakness, the Sun's sins, and the Sun's scars are our salvation. There are histories where they will trap us, prevent us from rising to eternity. You need to know how to figure out crafting a lot better. I'd like to know what each station makes and whether there is a theme, etc. Weirdly enough, so it doesn't work perfectly, but you can get pretty far by running with some intuitions. So I'll give you an example of this. Let's say I want to make a Perinculate. So I think I can do that with Disciplines of the Scar. So to make Perinculate, in this case, I need 10 edge and a leaf. Now this is, of course, something that I found out through experimentation. Sometimes the books will give you some hints in terms of how these work. But the next question might be saying is like, okay, well, I think this kind of makes sense, right? I bring some elements together, and in order to make this pigment, to make this ink, I need some sort of a leaf. Maybe I'll sort of crush that in or something like that. So, Cat's Claw works well. That's got the leaf aspect and so on and so forth. So let's maybe think about what workstations might accept a leaf or might accept a flower. So, we have the forge here. We know the forge takes edge, but does it kind of make sense for the foundry, right? We've got the metal and the fuel. Would it kind of make sense that we would brew an ink here? I mean, maybe, but in this case, the idea of putting a leaf in, this is probably going to incinerate the leaf and maybe not leave me with an ink. We could also maybe say, okay, well, what about the altar, right? We've got the chancel in here. We do not name these hours, but we acknowledge that together they are the chancel, the cruciate, and the road. So this will take devotion, element of the soul, cooperative, omen, mark, and light, and remembrance, fuel, memory, pigment, and light. And again, could you put a leaf at an altar? There's nothing physically stopping you from doing that, but when you think about some of the things that you might put up at altars, candles and such, and devotion, an omen, a light, a sign, something like this, maybe more of yourself in terms of an element of the soul, doesn't 100% fit on its own. And you can kind of do this a few times over, right? But if we take something like if you take a look think of something like the hearth, the Hall of Voices, right? Well, we cook here, right? What can I put in for ingredients? Well, beverages, flowers, fuel, root, cooking ingredients, sustenance, and leaf. And so in this case here, admittedly, one does not immediately think I'm going to brew, an ink, particularly, a really powerful ink that does, makes has the potential to shape history or something like that. But it's not as outrageous. Let's say it's not as outrageous as, say, making an ink at a piano, let's say. And I tend to find that is a way. So, the thing I will admit that this game definitely is one where I have found myself sort of brute forcing through a couple of things at the very end. I'm not entirely sure I've been able to figure out every single recipe applying this reasoning, but in broad strokes, I think that actually does a better job than most of giving you an idea of how these things work together. And I get the impression that the skills have sort of been built in such a way that you get certain aspects, like certain workstations have certain aspects, and you'll tend to notice that the workstations that are a little bit more oriented towards making sort of certain physical things tend to correspond. And another example that I could give you would be if we think of stitching and binding, right? So we can take that, we'll put that at the loom. So you might imagine something like stitching and binding would probably have some similarity to weaving and knot working, right? Oh, I have not invested anything into this. Let's see. Do I have any heart to kick around? All right. Oh, but that's not going to work. And fabric. None of them have. All right. So there you go. Frithweft. And then you can kind of move. You can move through these, but the Frithweft in this case has sort of a fabric or a weaving sort of connection. So when we do weaving and knot working, perhaps unsurprisingly, we get the same thing here. Now, does it make sense that weaving and knot working gives you a name day riddle? Not exactly. Does it make sense that weaving and knot working gives you Peribiot? You know, that's a bit of a stretch. There's some ways that, like, after you find out what it makes, you might be able to sort of rationalize it. But the thing is that, like, the basic level 1 doesn't have any special ingredients. Whereas generally, if you either have an understanding from the book or if you have an understanding from the skill itself, you can, that's kind of, that will help you go from I have, N workstations and M different skills and, Q different ingredients, so now I've got some massively complicated, combination that I need to put together. That's a way that, in addition to using the restrictions of the different workstations, you can just sort of let your reason push you through. Yeah, exactly. And that's just there's just too much of it. And so the way I personally work is that I find it helpful to just try and use either what the books have told me. Sometimes the books will be a little more indirect in terms of what they're telling you. Sometimes you just need to realize what lesson they give or what memory they give to kind of get the hint. But the other thing I will say is that taking the time to do it in a way that seems intuitive will probably clear out a few of the puzzles for you. And then what that will allow you to do is for your remaining like crafting recipes, those are the ones that you can then brute force, right? So you're taking 5 that you're going to do a whole bunch of different combinations with rather than I'll do this one really quick. Oh, I can't do that. Okay. That's not going to work. But yeah, so something like this, I don't have the 15, so I throw some random things in. Nope, still doesn't like that. Actually may not be able to pull that off. There we go. Demonic laugh. So that's an example of where, like, okay, I have one more to do. I actually knew what the recipe for that was, but that you can sort of say, okay, we're going to try a bunch of different combinations together. That's the Noctonary, constructed by Thyrza for her own murky purposes, maintained by the Suppression Bureau for its murkier ones, and available now for mine. Of course, if you really like ASMR, I can just click on this thing. I bet you really want to know what room that is now. Okay, sorry for the digression. Let me just double check. 1, 2, and Did I start the phonograph? I did. Okay. "10 hours of oubliette containment for a relaxing sleep." Just getting an early start on next year. Alright, the skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. So we'll wait on the Applebright Euphonies. We still need to get some more memories, but we can keep moving up the Rhyme and Remembrance. So the end of this will be... Sorry, my tablet keeps going to sleep on me, which is desirable, just a little inconvenient. Yeah, so Rhyme and Remembrance, I believe, will be up to 5. I think I need to reorganize the... So I actually don't remember if Inks of Power and Inks of Revelation are going to go this high, but I'll settle for this for now. So we'll take Rhyme and Remembrance. We will take the Whist. We definitely want to use the Hindsight first, because that is going to... that's one that Mr. Kill could potentially give me. Now, normally I would use Lost because that's easy for me to replace, but I want to see whether or not that book had... salt inside of it. So this is going to be my opportunity to experiment. Have a good night, Wanderer Down. Thank you for stopping by. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Okay, let's go for... I kind of want to keep the core. Although I'm also running out of things to do with the health, so I should be willing to put that to use at some point. Yeah, we're just going to stick with that. How are the hours progressing? With lots and lots of talk, Vanguard Master. How are your calls going? Actually, I should also be asking Ellen Ripley how the meeting's going. I don't know if we should send a search party or not. Skill is now level 3. Its power aspects have also increased. Alright. We should be able to get another one of these. So Bittersweet Certainty, Contradiction, and Loss seems to make sense. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. Improve the skill to level 4. No search party needed for you. At least calls went well. I'm talking to a friend of mine trying to recruit him or his son to translate Warbringers. Excellent. No, go nuts, Vanguard Master. For those of you who don't know, Vanguard Master is somebody... actually, I guess Vanguard Master is probably the best example of one of the viewers who sort of had the rug pulled out from under them, because once upon a time I used to do a lot of grand strategy games, which I believe is what originally brought them in, fellow Canadian. And then... You know, I haven't done a grand strategy game in ages, and I've just been playing this weird narrative occult game and talking about all sorts of, horrifyingly liberal woke game stuff. Playing one of them reading games. But no, it's Vanguard has actually been very, very kind, very patient in dealing with a fairly radical and extended change in programming. Very, very narrative, very arcane kind of games. But I will say that Vanguard has been developing their own game, Warbringers of Angrel. You are welcome to share your Steam link, by the way, if you'd like. It's in early access. I will leave. You mentioned, by the way, so I was supposed to do some testing for Vanguard over the weekend, and unfortunately, the time didn't work out for me. So, from what I understand, the game has actually changed quite radically over the course of early access. But obviously, everybody kind of knows how tough it is to get the word out. So I've never felt... I mean, I think everybody kind of knows the dynamic, right? There's a style on Twitch where people kind of want to pretend that there aren't other broadcasters out there. That never seems to be the right way to handle it. But on the other hand, we've all had the experience of sort of watching somebody saying, well, hello, fellow streamer. I just finished streaming Book of Hours myself. Streaming sure is tough, especially getting those extra viewers, huh? Obviously people don't want to feel like they're being used, but on the other hand, you never really know where your next point of interest is going to come from. So where I can, obviously talking up people like Oswin Stream, being able to say that, Vanguard Master is currently making a game, I'm in absolutely no position to tell anybody whether they're going to enjoy Oswin Stream or if they're going to enjoy Vanguard's game. The very least that I can do is I can say, why I like Oswin Stream, or I can say, actually, Vanguard's probably a better salesman for his own game than I am right now, just because I'm sorry to hedge, but I did want to at least mention that the gameplay had changed from the time that I'd played before. Oh, sorry, yes, and okay, so I was actually going to follow up with you on Discord saying, it's like, hey, if I get back to you at the end of the week, would that help out? No, at the end of the week will not be enough for you. So I'm really sorry, Vanguard. I've clearly dropped the ball. I think you may know, though, things get busy sometimes. I do not need to tell that to a game developer. But yes, anyways, early congratulations on your game getting out of early access. I know probably the sales numbers haven't been what you were looking for it. Although, again, sorry if that, I'm just going by Steam reviews on this. I'm not trying to make a general statement, but I will definitely say, sticking with a game to finish like that's a big one, because I think we've all had the experience of a game that isn't financially viable and it just gets dropped. But second of all, I mean, there's a lot of people who run around and talk about an idea that they have for a game. You actually did it. So that's definitely one of the things where I don't want it to just be sort of the hollow congratulations. That is actually a major accomplishment that I don't know how many people are really in a position to be able to say. And I largely say that just because I know you had to deal with a couple of people in the forum who were sort of running their mouths about things. Yeah, that's good to hear. And I'm hoping that, your potential audience sort of sees the time that you put into the game and sort of see it as, I know there's that depressing fact, or the depressor, not the depressing. There's sort of the depressor of that early access sign. So I'm hoping that people can kind of see that you've shipped. Well, you and Xeno have shipped. Obviously, you're not just a one-man band. But anyways, it is definitely, as somebody who has in a work environment gone underappreciated for an extended period of time and have now enjoyed a really wonderful sort of appreciation of some of what I bring to the workplace. I definitely know that the measures that people externally want to put on success are not always the same as the ones that you measure yourself. And so where I can, I like to try and mark the accomplishments that people may not necessarily be getting the credit for. You also refuse to give up on the game halfway through, if for no reason than to prove all the naysayers wrong. Yeah, spite is a really good motivator sometimes. Plus, having a finished game, it is better for your grand plan of trying to convince someone like Games Workshop to give you a Warhammer license. Fingers crossed for some years from now. Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, because I imagine they'll let you have the license. It's just a question of money. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of these things where you definitely seem to have a longer term. You seem to have a longer term plan, so I'm interested in seeing where you go with it. I'm also interested in, I don't know, it's nice. There's a reason why I go to the local game dev meetup, right? It's always interesting to hear developers and sort of talk about what they're doing, especially because they very often will develop things that are not necessarily what I would have thought of or would have made myself. So it's always kind of interesting to hear the perspective and the experience that goes into it. I think you had said that yours came from Bannerlord modding. The Wind's Ruin, the second volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of his time as a raider, when his name was not Thomas but Toke, scything the sea, striving for plunder. I've read Abbot Thomas clearly regrets his storm years, and much of the book is taken up with his thoughts on penitence, but there are hints that he misses those years and the companionship of his sword brother, ship brother, Trigev. No, not at all, Vanguard. Again, I wanted to take the time to mark the milestone, or at least the pre-milestone. But yeah, no, I'd love to. I mean, especially for follow-up game. Follow-up game doesn't kind of seem to have the same time constraint as, you know, can you test it before the before the game leaves early access? It doesn't seem to have the same sort of time constraint that the other one does, but I know I will be in touch, so I am definitely looking forward to hearing what you've got next on your roadmap. Singlefoot Songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan, near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations, with the Grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The Singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The Singlefoots sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become Singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. Nope, I'm muddling these. And The Invisible Opera, unfinished recording. A recording of a 1911 attempt to perform attempt at a performance of Wings Within Wings, the so-called Invisible Opera. The singers complete the Skewbald aria, Beneath Our Skin, and Rose and Maya without incident. I wonder if I can... without incident, but the Invisible Opera is dedicated to Ferzref the Magpie, who delights in unexpected interruptions. The recording ends with a clamor of horrified voices, a grating metallic screech, and a soft brass buzzing that fades into burring silence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we will be... We'll be focusing on the rhyme and remembrance for the rest of the day. I also need to get better at remembering the different kinds of Carapace Cross, because the Wings Within Wings almost certainly is a Carapace Cross reference, and then when you have the other components, there's like, okay, there's no doubt anymore. But again, they're not all the same, so... Yeah, no problem, Vega. I don't take attendance. It's always nice to have you here. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So this does help me out, the winter. The Larkabine Codex. Christopher Larkabus claims to have purchased 2 handwritten copies of the Codex from a family of witches on the shores of the Sea of Marmara. A third was given to the sea. The sister and witch came from the west, where they were born in 2 wombs, one a princess, one a monster. Nevertheless, they loved each other from birth and met in secret to seek union. When the great drought came, the kings of that land tried to sacrifice the princess and the witch, so they sailed across the sea. When despair took them, they flung themselves into the drowning waters, and so found the Painted River, where they entered the Mansus through the offices of the Red Grail. Nevertheless, the Codex ends with a condemnation of the Grail. And that was indeed salt. All right, now we don't have too much time left in the day, so let's just take a minute and see. Skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. Let's just double check I have what I need to finish out the day strong. Nope, not Sea Stories. Applebright. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Arab. At last I am something of an authority in this. So yeah, I'm learning actually quite a bit about your interests on this, Oswin, and I like what I'm seeing. I have a feel, and actually it's especially fun too because I know the Crossing to Noon, we probably had different points of interest. I'm sure the mention of hello Ionix, how are you doing tonight? I know probably to you the mention of Ava in the Crossing to Noon was the real selling point. But for me, basically, anytime I see a reference to Franklin Bancroft, I'm gonna have a big smile on my face. Although it's not always as funny as the Franklin Bancroft Diaries. So between the two, I feel that we have kind of an entire block of books that we're interested in, and then that happens to be the one Union book. Oh, sire, I feel like you're about to ask me for something. I'm doing well. I saw a message from Sweeps, or a tweet from Sweeps, so I think it was just thrown. I don't think it was a stream tonight. Anyways, I know I'm kind of curious how Sweeps has been doing with Book of Hours, because I know this has been sort of off limits because of the potential for spoil. I mean, it's a weird one in terms of spoilers just because there's so many different endings and I haven't actually gotten to founding the Lighthouse Institute yet. So, but I also get it, right? Like I don't want people to feel like they will potentially enjoy things less. Okay, so it looks like I'm not reading any of the books I need to right now. So, like I said, we want to finish off the day strong. So we're going to get our last improvement for Rhyme and Remembrance. That'll require either a moon or a winter. Seems to me that probably the easiest thing to do is just to grab a contradiction. Alternatively, a confounding parable, but I think we'll go for the contradiction in this case. Can use Faust in that case. So that gets me the 4 that I need for Rhyme and Remembrance. Now, I also have a couple of other opportunities that are opened up with this. So, for instance, we will go to the Vagabond desk, and I will read The Sun Disfigured. Do I want to do that? Yeah, let's go ahead for that. And that'll get me another persistent memory. We have enough time to go to the moor. Gather in spring, the gorse is bright on the land's nape. And we should also be able to make something of Crowcross Sands. So normally I use Rhyme and Remembrance for that, but we're going to have to move on to something else. Let's do insects and let's not do insects and nectars actually. Let's do snow stories. What has the sea seeded today? I don't really need more water, so I will refrain from bringing up the bucket. Now I believe I can't... Yeah, I can't work with that, so we will gather grapes from the garden, but I think that's the only one that I can... I think that's the only sort of food that I can get from the garden. We can, of course, tend the bees. Bees, like librarians, are not to be trifled with. Honey or beeswax, if I'm careful. So for the core and the health, I can divide that among the gardens. And yeah, actually, I guess the metal and the fet I can use to catalog the last 2 books. So yeah, let's do the last of the... So I'm assuming we probably can't do Blue Crown, but I'm gonna verify that. Oh, interesting. Blue Crown still blossoms for a little while longer. Cat's Claw in spring. Moth orchids in spring. Should probably go a little heavy on the moth orchid. Gather cat's claw carefully. Its mischievous thorns find ways through the thickest gloves. And cataloging doesn't take that long, so I'm just gonna wait this out. I'll see what we get from... I'll basically just make sure that we've locked in the extra level for Rhyme and Remembrance. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? Okay, so we've got... Actually, we can level that up right now. Mr. Kill, Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. The skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So, the Applebright Euphonies. Breath is the temptation of the soul. Pleasures and insights that the church would call the secrets, the sisterhood the mysteries, and the bureau unsanctioned. On to Rhyme and Remembrance. Clouds, regret, salt, soul, and secret. Add a whist. Add sea stories, so satisfying to have come so far. And for my last trick, we will take the Baronial Period book from the cell. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's Curia period, roughly the 1700s to 1800s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. And because it's the lower risk, we'll go to Natan of Regensburg's desk. It's an apothecary's desk, all right, but it dates from at least 100 years after Natan of Regensburg came here. Of course, his son, his grandson, and his great-grandson were all Natans too. So we will add the Nocturnal book. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's nocturnal period after the turn of the century. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Books from this period are almost never contaminated. And what I think I might do when we get to the end of the day, we're more or less there, but let's just finish off our tasks. I think I'm going to make myself a bit of tea. Nothing special, just something without caffeine. Which I guess doesn't make it tea, it makes it a tisane, but... Oh, very nice. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales? Well, who'd listen? Figure we might as well still keep chatting with Mr. Kill. We could probably use some more eggs too, but we're all ready to go for the salon, so. Okay. Rhyme and remembrance, to speak with the dead, to torment the living, to celebrate both. So before I go too much further, one thing I do want to just clear for myself, I want to clear out the to-do list. So just to verify, rhyme and remembrance should be at 5. Let me just find the branch I was going to put it into. We worked this all out a few streams ago, so it's just a matter of me finding the correct... was that a Skolakosophy one? I think it was. Oh, right there. Okay, Applebright Euphonies should be 6. And that was in Bosk. Cool. Just going to do a little housekeeping on the note that I've written here. Okay, so on the topic of the things that I had in my to-do list. Oh man, you guys have got some good teas. So I was going to work on Wolf Stories for Birdsong, which would be 4 scale and Moon. Path and Pilgrim would be 6 scale and Rose. On the Preservation branch, we would have 5 for Stone Stories, 5 for Tridesma Hira, and 7 for Edicts Inviolable. Now, Horamakistry was a pretty tempting one with drums and dance, 5 for Drums and Dances. So that's 5 Heart and Nectar. Now, the reason why I was doing things like Birdsong and Preservation is because that will get me Core, which is one of the elements of the soul that I'm sort of weaker on. And then for Arab, Bosk and Skolakosophy were the 2 I was working with there. And then as I kind of go down the list of things that I'm short on, then it would be Faust, which would mean Ithistry and Illumination, and then Shapt, which would be Nyctodromy and Skolakosophy. So I do somewhat want to prioritize the Birdsong and Preservation lesson or skills if I can manage it, but sometimes circumstances will kind of conspire for me to put the point somewhere else. Anyways, let's take care of the all the different events. So we have The Queens of the Rivers, a surreal contemporary play by the enigmatic Monica Medina, in which the Queens of the Rivers are murdered one by one. And that will actually get me Path and Pilgrim, which is one of the ones that we wanted 6 memories for. So this will only give me 1, but it's still something I can work with. We also have By Their Marks Ye Shall Know Them, or Shall Ye Know Them, a monster hunting initiate of the hour called the Colonel, who identifies herself as Little Sophia. She provides advice on finding the weak spots of Long. So again, another relatively low yield book, but one I'm not unhappy to get. All right, there's another persistent memory for me to hang on to. We did just read this recently, so I'm gonna leave that aside. And then this is just a nice to actually, you know what? No, if I'd gone for a confounding parable, that would have been more helpful. But anyways, Wainscot Histories, subtitled Stories from Behind the Walls, a miscellany of non-traditional histories, including battles not generally acknowledged and countries which appear on no map, told in a playful, apparently fictional manner. Gore does not... Does it say by William Gore? Yeah, this doesn't actually say the author anyway. Gore does not mention the Mansis directly, but constant coy metaphorical references to ascending the staircase of years, to the doors of sleep, and to the blue light of dawn suggest he had commerce with the unseen world. It was common in that time to speak of the division of the sun, by which contemporaries understood the eruption of barbarian forces and of their uncouth gods. So the last things for me to do today, obviously collect all the stuff that we're going to be getting from harvesting. I need to set aside the wild surmise. Eyes open, skies open. We'll sleep on that overnight. And then we'll see what the summer brings, or possibly Numa brings. But let's hope it's not Numa. Actually, Numa wouldn't be too bad, now that I think of it. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? So I'm not going to lie, this is actually a nice little collection of memories here. The Storm Solace, that would have helped me with the Alplebright Euphonies if I needed. But we are at the end of the day. Only thing left is to wait for the gardening to finish, and then we're good. I think I'm just going to put this all on the bridge in the interests of speed. So, unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. Sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Gather catsclaw carefully. Its mischievous thorns find ways through the thickest gloves. Moth orchid is soft as velvet to the touch, except when it changes. We got honey. I've talked about this more in Prosciutto Fist's stream, but one of the perks about my new workplace, so they do have sort of a grounds around the building. And so they, not big, like I'm not working in like the English countryside or anything like that, but there's sort of there's a nice little bit where you can sort of walk with some like nature. And so they actually have a beehive. Apparently it actually got quite big. So what they do as part of the charitable campaign is they actually sell some of the honey from the beehive. And I found out about it, so I started at the beginning of this year, and I'm kind of getting the tour of the place, the proper tour of the place. Like obviously, they sort of gave me a small introduction when I was interviewing, but I got the real tour. You know, the stuff that they show you when they're not trying to put on a good front. But yeah, they mentioned it's like when there's the charitable campaign going on, they sell the honey, but you know there's a limit because you know there's not enough, so you know it's one per worker and you have to be there. So I made this small commitment to myself that I was going to get the work honey. Yeah, exactly. once you sign the dotted line and can't run away anymore, they show you the true place. So you open the curtain. Oh God, it's the bees. But yeah, no. So I thought it was the most charming thing in the world. I've obviously never worked in a place that will sell you honey from the work bees. So yeah, I was utterly charmed by this, and I made a silent promise to myself to get my hands on the work honey, which I did. It's sitting back in the kitchen. Kind of makes them your coworkers, doesn't it? Worse than that, I'm not that good with like I just don't know most of this stuff, right? Like I wish I really do want to like grab, so actually Sham's outlines are great for these things, but like biology, chemistry, physics, you know, very, very limited understanding. And so like most of the time when I learn these facts, sometimes I'm learning them for the first time. So when I was getting the honey, I sort of said, you know, what I'd heard is like, oh, you know, I heard the hive got quite large, and they said, yeah, you know, they explained the number of bees that they estimated were there, and they said it actually got quite alarming when they went to harvest, because you know you just have this big stack in front of you and it's full of bees. So and they said it's like, and they explained it's like, yeah, and the number's down to some like preposterously low number. He said it's like, because you know they've already harvested the honey, you know, they're just another mouths to feed. So as soon as they're done, all the workers get killed off. And I was like, oh God, I hope that isn't a universal policy here. So, but yeah, I do have B co-workers. Hey, Knight 97. I'm guessing that means that there is a D-Pain who's going to be in that raid. So, hello, Knight. Hello, possibly D-Pain. Very good to see you. It looks like you had a very healthy audience tonight. What were you playing? For those of you who do not know Knight 97, a broadcaster that I had the good fortune of being able to, I guess, co-guest with It Is D-Pain on the on their podcast, Pointless Discourse. And I will actually confess, one thing that I really appreciate about Knight 97 is that I feel like I am a write-only streamer with Knight 97. I definitely get to see them in my chat much more than I hang out in theirs. No Pain that you know of. Oh, I am gonna have words with him. But anyways, a delight to see you as always. No, it's limited to me. I used to have a setup where like there would be a certain period of time that you're in the channel and you can just use the. Yeah, but surely he would be watching. Anyways, one way or the other. I always appreciate you hanging out. I'm sorry that I am not a better viewer, but definitely somebody to hang out. Especially because I actually feel like our hours are a little bit disjointed. I definitely tend to stream. My usual start time would be a little bit more around the time that Knight 97 is broadcasting. What's generally happened now is that I am streaming later because I just wind up slammed with work. Again, not a major hardship because I really like my work, but I sort of know that it makes me a really bad I don't know, community member, viewer, whatever it is. In any case, thank you very much for bringing your audience along, Knight. I'd love to know what you were playing, or possibly you were just chatting. But for those of you who are not familiar with this game, I'm actually going to be taking a very brief break. So for those of you who are only here to see Knight and wonder what this weird Canadian accent is relative to what you originally signed up for, I will wish you a good night and completely understand. But Factorio, are you playing the Space Age? I don't know if Space Age is an expansion or a standalone one, or are you just doing the base game? That is one that I've wanted to get into, but I haven't. I think it was Endors, I think, was the one to sort of sell me on Factorio back when it first came out, and I have it. I'm actually quite interested in it, but I haven't actually jumped in with both feet. Space Age is a DLC, which you will be getting into DLC content eventually. Very cool. Obviously it's a fairly hefty price for it, but I also imagine it's a very sizable expansion. So I wasn't sure if it was a standalone DLC or if it was something that you needed the base game for. But yeah, sorry. I was just going to say, I'd love to introduce this game. I will just, for those of you who are trying to find out what this is, I will do a better explanation on the other half of it. But I will say, for those of you who are unfamiliar, this is a game called Book of Hours. I'm playing the House of Light expansion for it. And basically, it is a game where you are a librarian of an ancient occult library. I'm fairly far into the game now, so you sort of start off on the beach of Brandkrug, St. Brendan's Cove. You work your way up through the village, get reacquainted with people, and you slowly start unlocking all of these rooms and sort of learn the story of Hush House and its history, as well as sort of develop yourself. It is a bit of an RPG. You sort of have something like attributes and something like skills. Well, these are actually called skills in the game. There's no experience points, but you get memory and you get knowledge. And so as a librarian, a cozy sort of occult librarian simulator, it is a game entirely about of sort of organizing knowledge, and they do a really neat job of taking it from the books to the knowledge that you have to ultimately a worldview and something that will wind up shaping this much larger environment. So I definitely I think this is a really compelling game. I think it's one that I've really enjoyed. And if you want to know a little bit more about the mysteries that Hush House holds, I do encourage you to stick around for the break, or after the break at least. But I am going to need to get myself some of my sleepy tea that the rest of my audience has been enjoying. And yeah, I've never been fond of the divide by number of hours measure. Like honestly, for me, I just like, I just like saying these are things of value, right? Like I really respect the fact that RimWorld, which I've actually finally gotten into and played a bit of, I like the fact that they generally don't do much as far as discounts are concerned. I mean, now, so many years after release, I think they're doing a 20% discount, but that's also after the price is increased as well. And then I think the DLC, I think the DLC is a little bit smaller, but there's several of them. So, I think they're about $20 a pop. They'll go anywhere between, 15 to 10% off. And they've got a perfectly reasonable claim, which is, we've made a thing of value. We think the game is worth it. We're not going to be discounting it. More importantly, they don't need to. And so, in this case here, I actually think it's perfectly reasonable. Like, so, I'm a Civ player, right? The latest DLC for that was about $50, right? So that's essentially what a good game on its own is going to cost. But I love Civilization. I really enjoy playing those games, and I definitely think that there is a lot of value behind that. So, again, I don't actually think it's a bad thing at all to set a price commensurate to the value of the game. I know people complain about it, but in the end, I've always sort of felt the amount of time. I guess the thing for me is that, like, my complaint very frequently is that movies are too long. And I actually think that there are some games that are too long. And so this idea of creating more value by adding more movie or more game is actually counter to my own interests as a viewer. But I realize that the time played denominator is a very popular measure. So I'm going to be, I'm not going to be winning anybody else over on that. Now, before I completely alienate the rest of the audience, I'm going to go get my tea. If you have been here since the start, or maybe if you've just gotten here but have been sitting for a while, now would be a good time to get up, have a stretch, get a glass of water. Otherwise, take care of yourselves. And we'll be back for about another hour, probably closer to 40 minutes now. But I'm going to take a little bit of time to get some tea, and then we will do a bit more House of Light before we finish off for tonight. Anyways, we'll see you in a bit. Thank you everyone for your patience. I have baptized a blend of spearmint, chamomile, lemongrass, natural spearmint flavor, orange leaves, lemon peel, and hawthorn berries. Summertime! Time to get my librarian bikini out. Alright, and it's a sunny day, so the sun is not what it was, but today he is smiling. Summer, the Grail at her greatest. What's happening in the world beyond Brandkrug? What visitors will the season bring? We'll either draw a new incident or find a suitable visitor for the current incident, or retire the current incident if there are no visitors left for it. You know what I did forget to do? I forgot to invite the Kills and Zachary and Connie, but we should be able to do that pretty soon. So, oh yeah, actually it would make sense that I don't do it at the start anyway, because we need to see what's happening with the affair of the Unfinished Lark. This is a lovely song. Okay, well, we've got a minute before any of that happens, so let's take a minute to think about what I want to try to do for today. So I've got a couple of rooms that I want to open still. We've got the impermeable cell, which would be Forge, Knock, or Sky to open. We have the sagging dock, which is Moon and Rose. So the Rose may be interesting as far as the Barber is concerned, but I think our better chances are at the Gaping Darkness. Actually, just the Gaping Darkness. The Honeyed Forbidding is a little late. So here's what I'm going to do for a start. I think before I get too committed to anything, let's just write the invitations and get those out of the way. So it's only 2. Oh, that's not going to work. Sights and Sensations is Sky. Rhyme and Remembrance is Moon, so I may not be able to use Caller's Desk. Alright, let's use Ava's Desk. And because I want to get fancy, we'll use the Silent Typewriter. Oh, hang on, I think I put my book in the librarian's quarters. Yeah. A sturdy brass-cornered writing case, which has been of service to at least 3 librarians in the house. So, request Zachary's presence, and then Connie requires Moon. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Zachary to Brandkrug. And where is Zachary? One is instructed to address the letter literally: house, street, town, shire, country. Now I just need to post it. Dear Mr. Wakefield. And as a follow-up, let's go to the Vagabond Desk in this case. An elegant relic repurposed by Green for a small and secret war. I have enough here to craft a letter inviting Connie to Brandkrug. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So I'm not going to rule out the possibility of inviting a... Actually, I think I am. After... Yeah, I'm going to invite a... I'm going to hire a barber. In summer, the barber comes by to keep the villagers kempt. A shilling will buy his services. Barbers offer moth and a little rose, alternatively add a soul card to find any rarer guests who might be seeking employment. So I'm going to taking a stab in the dark here, but it doesn't take a whole lot for me to add the tryst. The itinerant barbers of the South Country will keep you clean and kempt, make sure you don't miss out on any news or gossip, and arrange matters so you aren't too troubled by vermin. Snip, snip. Secret sorrows may join our strengths. Boost Moth and Moon. So again, I'm kind of running on the assumption here that I'm going to be able to pull this off, but we need 12 Moth. Where they're going to be at 4 when I add the Tryst, 5 when I add the Shears, and then we'll be at 10 when I add the Sun's Weakness. So we should be able to find something in terms of food or drink that should take us through. I mean, if I have to use the Skin Shuck meat, I'm going to be sad, but probably a honey. Actually, let's work this out now. So if I take a honey, that's food. I'm going to be so sad if there's no moth drink other than the Skin Shuck mead. Huh. Fragrant Chalice Tea, Honey Scar Jasmine, Blue Crown. It's really... Oh, you were hoping to work on that desk? So I may need to... yeah, I may need to try plan B for... So the funny thing on this, like we've got the almonds, which again is roughly equivalent to me giving the honey. We've got something that'll grant a single moth. But when I want to go higher, I'm basically limited to... Oh, wait a minute, Lethe. Lethe actually supercharges the barber, so I'm gonna overdo it, but I won't complain about that. All right, now I just need to post it. So again, we'll wait the 30 seconds to see who the visitor is, but I think we're in good shape as far as getting what we need for the day's work done. I'm working on the assumption that I'm not going to be able to get anything else done except for the salon. Although we can get it, we can do it relatively early in the day. Now, actually, Oswin, have you seen that you can invite the villagers to a salon? I like inviting the kills. I will invite some of the others, but I always like bringing the kills in because they're my friends. What comes? Neither of us knows yet, but we will. Okay, so let's start. I think I'll start with the Lethe. A nice drop. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. Oh, yep, the itinerant barbers of the South Country will keep you clean and kempt. Make sure you don't miss out on any news or gossip, and arrange matters so you aren't too troubled by vermin. Snip, snip. So they arrive in the summer. It is summer. I am sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. Now, I will confess, I actually forget what combination I need to make Lethe. I'm assuming it's a moth thing. So I guess maybe writes the roots. Well, there's name day riddle. Doesn't quite do the trick though, does it? Probably Essential Periost will help me here. Okay. Oh, okay. Liquid is not a beverage, so... Okay, so Lethe may be a nectar thing instead. That may complicate things for me, but let's see where it goes. Strange fruit. Okay, well, we know what that is. Oh, here we go. All right. So I need to find another 4 nectar and a beverage. Pour it out. All right, let's try that again. Craft Lethe, brew a moth liquor. Herbs and infusions, the scholar level nectar plus beverage creates Lethe. So you can kind of see a little bit of a sort of a trial run of me, of how I do crafting there, Oswin. Like, I had a rough idea in terms of what it was. I was mistaken in thinking it was moth originally, but I thought, you know what, probably some of these like leaves and thorns or herbs and infusions might help. So I had sort of a ballpark to work with. And then from there, I was sort of able to narrow down and say, okay, so moth doesn't help. Well, let's take a quick look at the nectar side of things. Oh, what do you know? Yes, it is nectar. And then I found the combination there. So that's a bit of a shorthand in terms of how you can avoid spending too much time looking at this stuff. All right. And Miss Azita Bukhara, I believe we already have her in the... Yes, we already have her in the book. It says grateful here, which is how I know it, but I can also check my book here. Where is she? This is, yeah, right here. Bukhara Exports, Samarkand. So this gives me, this basically is my permission to send the invitation to Connie and Zachary now. Send an invitation to a visitor. Stamp, envelope, send. And we still need to finish with the, we still need to finish with our friend, the barber. But I'm going to use primarily whist for the rest of the day. Stamp, envelope, send. Postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. So I have a minute for these two to come in. We can invite the Kills as well. Mrs. Kill, the midwife, is tall and gloomy. Mr. Kill, the undertaker, is slight and wry. For 10 years she has drawn villagers into the world, and he has shaped cradles for their departure. But she can also whittle, and he can also paint. What? Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. There we go. Invite the Kills to Hush House. Invite the Kills up to Hush House. Alright, so I think in this case we'll give up the sun's weakness. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. And from there we'll chat with Azita. Ooh, an amber pumpkin. A lovely golden gourd grown beside the soft sea. It's not a soft amber pumpkin. One of the reasons I like inviting the Kills is this description. Mr. Kill is clearly excited and remains courteous. Mrs. Kill is courteous and may be excited. As ever, it's difficult to tell. The Kills visiting. The Kills will attend the next salon in their Sunday best. The Kills are pleasant company, but are not as erudite as some of the other visitors and may be slightly less productive of lessons. This card will remain available until the Kills have attended a salon. It's actually one of the reasons I have not invited Reverend Timothy or Denzel. It's not that I don't like them or I don't want to invite them. It's just I get to invite one villager, and I like the reactions of the Kills to the invitation. I've also decided that I really want the first salon that I bring Reverend Timothy to be one where he's seated next to Hokubal de Fosend. So... sorry, just taking a minute to think about what else I need. We'll probably be out the health until after the salon starts, so I'll just accept the risk on that. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made the difference for the day. Okay, so we're actually ready to take the barber to open the Gaping Darkness. So thunder prowls the entrance to this cave, a dying curse or a capricious storm spirit. It must be dealt with carefully. And then there's the affair of the unfinished lark. For 3 years, the sculptor adept Zuthemalim Zidane has labored at his masterpiece, an abstract sculpture that speaks with the voice of the desert lark. And now, puzzlingly and suddenly, he is dead. Hello, librarian. Azita Bukhara, businesswoman, chess master, initiate of the Scarred Hours, sometimes called the Colonel. Hello, librarian. I have questions. I'll pay for answers. There is something unseemly at work here, librarian. I actually have quite a sympathy for this woman. Now, obviously, my heart lies with Lantern and Sky. So I'd say probably in the original game, my top 3 would be Lantern, Nock, and Edge. And then I would add Sky to the Pantheon with Book of Hours. So an Edge Sky is something I'm sympathetic to. I have no doubt at all that Zidane was murdered, but the motive confounds me. It was something to do with his work or with the music he tried to teach it. So in this case, we need 3 or higher for Sky. I think the Perugian Diaries will do the trick here. Yep. I think, librarian, that Zidane had been eavesdropping at the keyholes of heaven. At least the motive is grander than artistic jealousy, but I do not think it will be practical to avenge him. Ooh, should be earning money. Did Zachary receive my invitation? Mr. Zachary Wakefield, marksman, detective, renegade. He has always been a quiet man, but since he left the Suppression Bureau, he has grown even quieter and terribly still, except for his fingers and for his eyes, always in restless motion. MCO Constance Lee. Connie has risen swiftly in the Suppression Bureau to the exalted rank of Constable Oculate Minor. Don't get in her way. And we're going to go straight into the picnic at the Gulskrai Logia. Somber conversations where once poor Valentine sat alone. Here, one might have a picnic, but only in spring and summer. Picnics must take place before dusk in spring or summer with at least 2 guests. The more guests, the more successful the salon, but you'll need enough food and drink in the room for everyone. My guests settle down to a picnic. Keep an eye on the salon as it progresses. You will need to add soul cards to encourage the conversation to flow. Different guests will need different soul cards. The more guests, the longer the salon will last. So again, I'm willingly losing the opportunity for some lessons here, but sometimes you want to do things for more than just mechanical reasons. Wistful asides, instinct and emotion, add a tryst card. With Keeper level Nectar, not Moon, Lethe is the precursor to the Great Ink Mericat. So this is the other thing I'll note too, Oswin. The game does actually tell you when you make certain recipes. It'll usually tell you what it can lead to. Now, what does the Great Ink Mericat do? I'm going to leave that for your own investigations. But usually when you make one of the ways that you can find out the Keeper level recipes is to actually just look at what the game tells you when you make certain items. Again, not always reliable, but it helps. I feel it's appropriate to do a very wintry conversation with in the Gulskrai Logia. Connie and Zachary are discussing the effects of his tattoos of containment plan to help with his condition. It's not promising. He shows Connie his forearm, on which the tattoos are already fading like flower colors under frost. You must come in, she tells him, to the bureau before it's too late. It's getting hard to explain why I haven't brought you in already. Raise a complex question. Add a whist card. Connie questions Mrs. Kill about stories of changelings in the remoter parts of the county. Mrs. Kill insists that these are only stories, but admits that she has been known to string windowsills with red thread and place rowan twigs beneath the cradle, just in case. As an intermission, Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries, of the cults of Isis and of Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. We can probably afford to use more elements of the soul at this point, but I'd rather not leave it to chance. And we'll check out that room after. Say something witty, add a shopped card. Ah! The conversation dwelt on Kilisimi. I haven't seen that one before. My guests leave content. For a more successful salon, add more guests and ensure you have the right soul cards, or both. A quiet picnic concludes. Satisfaction, the quiet salon. Killisima. I had no idea that you would get language out of that. You held a quiet salon. Perhaps there weren't very many guests, or they didn't have much to say. This is a marker to remind you that you can't hold another salon until the next season. So again, I'll still use this the way that I would use anything else. It's winter and moon. Quenchings and Quellings is another one that's also free for me, and I think I actually wanted to try and level up Inks of Containment at some point. So we do have some time left in the day. I can probably get 1, maybe 2 of these leveled up. Yeah, let's see how it goes. I don't know how you felt. It seemed that you were very excited by the salon, Osmond, but I know it's also a short one when I do a picnic like that. So I hope I didn't. I hope I didn't overhype it. Oh my goodness! I did not realize I had these books. So first thing I'm gonna do, let's catalog some more books. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's dawn period, sometime before the end of the first millennium, commonly reckoned. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. Definitely got more on the tattoos, which is something I was interested in. Oh, hang on, sorry, this is a new book, this is a new room that I unlocked, that's why I didn't notice those before. We will read the description in a little bit, I just want to get these, registered. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's baronial period, roughly the 1500s to 1700s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. So in addition to the 3 books, this is a bit of an interesting... actually, okay, hang on. Oswin, what do you know about Red William? And are you interested in knowing a little bit more about Red William, or is that a mystery that you are sufficiently, you would sort of like to have, you'd like to have a little bit of runway to sort out for yourself? Because I'm going to talk a little bit about Red William. Potentially talk a bit about Red William. I can also save it for the next stream, because we are actually getting close to wrapping up, and I can spend the time leveling up my skills as well. Would you like to know more on your own account, or would you like a peek at something you'll learn inside of a room, and then you can piece together the rest through reading the books on your own? I'm totally indifferent. I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but I just happen to know that there are some things that you like to sort out on your own, and this time I'd like to give you a peek. Okay. So, Hermit Cell. The words Red William are scratched into the wall by the bed nook. This was the name of the cunning man who laid a curse on Hendrik de Wolf, that there would be no 7th of his line, the cunning man that Hendrik de Wolf gelded and imprisoned beneath the house. But this doesn't look like a cell. There would have been no locks. Perhaps that other story is true, that William was an initiate of the Thunderskins secretly maintained by Hendrik to prophesy for him in the ancient manner. Who were the de Wolfs, really? So in addition to the 3 books, Domaine Reveline, Lambig Broselendi, Dandelion Wine, Schloss Jannings, Domaine Reveline, January Sanguinary, Ugal Ink, Granite Slab, a tiny potted tree, tiny as a ship in a bottle, Quire of Paper, Pribiot. I really think that this at some point was a desk that you could write at, and they may have changed it. And the Hermit's Workbench, Labor in Solitude, Forge, Sky, Scale, and Moon. Yeah, so this is one of the things, this is why I left it. So in some case, like, one of the things I respect about your stream and talking with you is that there'll be some conversations that you have with people, and, you know, everybody will be having a good time and you'll explain. So like, let's say, you know, I'm talking with everybody and I say, it's like, oh yeah, and what about the ending of Casablanca? And then somebody will immediately like stick their fingers in the air and yell, no spoilers, no spoilers. It's like, first of all, the ending of that movie is like one of the most lampooned finales ever. Like if you've ever seen a Looney Tunes episode, you've almost certainly seen the ending to Casablanca already. And the movie was made during World War II. So like, I feel like the statute of limitations of spoilers is probably over at that time. But of course, we know it's not really about the spoiler. It's about, making it about me, right? And so, it's a dynamic that we sometimes have to deal with, and especially in a stream, you don't necessarily know where everybody's going to be at. But one of the things I kind of appreciate about interacting with you is that you don't seem to immediately assume just because it is knowledge that you're getting out of sequence that it's necessarily going to ruin the experience for you. And one of the reasons I like that's my feeling about this game here, so it's always nice to have common cause. But one of the things that I think enhances the experience of the game, first of all, I liked your reaction to it, but there's plenty more for you to learn about Red William in both other rooms, but also through other books. So all that's really been communicated here is that you do, some of the little mysteries or some of the threads that you get to pull on, you get to know that there is additional information that you will find out as you go through the house. And so, of course, whatever, surprise that you might have been getting from the hermit cell on your own has now been replaced with that anticipation of all these other rooms where you get to see what's going on. Essentially, you sort of know that every room that you go into will potentially be telling you something about the setting that you didn't know before. So there's a couple of rooms where I've deliberately kept things back. So there's a couple of things in the jail that I think will be interesting for you to run into on your own, and I'll be very interested to hear what you think when you get to those bits. But there's a couple of others that I sort of feel like this is a nice little breadcrumb to put down, and it will give you a different take on some of them. And so you said, I'm one of those people that reads the last page of the book first, actually. So I actually have a coworker who does that, and I asked him why he does it, and he says for him, he does it to find out whether or not the book will actually be worth the time. I actually wound up doing that for 1984, which is one which I think is actually a bit of a surprising ending. But again, 1984 is a really, really great book. So it's one that I feel is probably going to be stronger than any effort I make to spoil it for myself. And then Vanguard says, I did it once without context. I had the entirely wrong impression about how the book was going to end. I was very surprised when you actually got to the end. And that was the last time that I did that. Were your plans better than what the book was ultimately delivered? Okay, the Perilous Path. This is not off the table in terms of possibilities. We do have some access to Moon, some access to Rose, but it's not obvious that this is a room that we want to unlock as is. Yeah, we'll see. The main focus for today, though, we definitely want to get these levels. So I suppose the right way for me to think about this would be to say we've got Moon and Winter here, and then we have Heart and Winter here. So I guess the question would be, do I have any Heart or do I have any Winter that needs to be leveled up? Looks like Edict's Inviolable could use Heart and Moon. And then, I mean, just about everything can use Moon. But if I'm looking to level up Birdsong, Wolf Stories needed 2. So I think what I'll do here is I will take, I'll level up Edict's Inviolable. So we'll turn that into a level 3. And then Wolf Stories we will take up 2 levels. So that's at 3. So that's eventually going to turn into a 5. That might be a little difficult for me to pull off. But let's still try. Okay. So, as usual, I want to make sure I plan out the... Actually, this is one I should be a little more careful in terms of planning out. So, Moon... And scale. So hindsight. Intuition. Everything's fair game at this point. Because I don't have a guess that I'm talking to. Fear. Because of its scale. Regret. No. Yeah, moon and scale. So contradiction. Foresight. Hindsight. Hang on. Yeah, we've already got the hindsight. Gossip doesn't help. Salt does. Confounding parable. Didn't I get another confounding parable recently? I'm sure I'll find it at an inconvenient time. Savage Hymn. Earth Sign if I have to. I'd rather not. Solace, Cheerful Ditties, Revelations, and Satisfaction. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, technically 8 if I have to. So first batch will require 3, second batch will require 4. Okay, no, we have exactly what we need. Now, whether or not I have enough desks is another question. But let's make do. Okay, so I'm going to need 2 Trist for the to level up the wolf stories. I suppose in the worst case scenario, we just, I mean, it's not like I'm going to use these elements of the soul for anything else anyway, so it's not a major hardship if this doesn't turn out, but okay. I don't even remember where we were on these things, so I'm just going to start on Introduction to the Histories again. Hindsight, Intuition. Alright, we'll do Key of Night for this one. Fear. That music is way too cheery when I say fear. I guess we did just recently read the Leonine Tantra, so we'll this one was Impulse. Regret. There we go. Okay, Contradiction. I don't even remember where we were on these. I think we'll just do See Does Not Regret. Confounding Parable and Savage Hymn. I think we're just one short technically, but oh no, yeah, we are one short because of the consider verb. Okay, well, I can live with that. We'll do the confounding parable. Wait, unless I already did the... No, we did an intuition, so let's do... Didn't I just do snare the tree? I'm pretty sure I did, but I'll read it one more... Or no, yeah, we did. So on to the other line. And for that, we'll just use whatever I have the most of. Fast. Okay, so I'm technically one short of what I wanted for Wolf Stories. Now, for Edict Liminal... Ooh. Okay, here's what I'm going to do for Edict's Liminal. So, oh, damn it, I can't because I just used up my consider verb. Edict's Liminal, I can use the heart and the... So I've got satisfaction here. Or sorry, Edict's Inviolable. So I need another heart or a moon. So we use the old wound in this case. So I can still time this out. It's just going to get a little awkward. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Let's set aside another tryst for the lesson. Okay, yeah, no, I know how I want to do this. Let's get as many vegetables as we can. Guess I can go for the grapes too. I've closed off the possibility of the beehive. And we don't really need more pears, but it's all about the food right now. I also think... Excuse me. So I can use the fet at the moor. And for Crowcross Sand, okay, I can use the fet there as well. That's for that. We can actually even use Crack Track, but I will refrain from the temptation. I think Putrefact, no. Well, actually, no, that'll work. Okay. I'm also just taking a minute. Yeah, so if I do loss, that's not going to help me. So I'm going to wait. Oh, I might have bungled this. No, we'll be fine. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a little while to set up for... I'm going to wait a little while to set up for the old wound to replace. I'm going to level up Edict's Inviolable first, do the replacement old wound, and then we'll get the last element of this, or the last memory that I need for Wolf Stories when I can. Actually, you know what? I don't even need to worry about that. We'll do that with the Earth Sign. Yeah, so we'll have everything that I need. I just may need to replace some persistent memories when all is said and done. And then whatever's left over here, we'll just throw into the Sweet Bones for some money. I don't think I need to worry about making anything right now. I mean, I can, but it's not a major priority at the moment. One thing that's nice about this is this does give me a bunch of time to... this does give me a bunch of time to work on... like leveling up my skills and essentially all this. I can prep for the fall autumn salon on my own time. There isn't like a major fire to put out now that we got this little one out of the way. The Book of Masks, Athena Vanna's work on the rogue hour called the Vagabond, who is also known as the Laughing Thrush, the Centipede, the Pilgrim, and by many other names, or as Vanna has it, Masks. I'm wondering if this has a reference to Maya in it. And Isaac of Karth's History of the Shadowless Kings. A true and accurate history of the Shadowless Kings by Isaac of Karth. Isaac describes the 1,000-year ascendancy of the Shadowless Empire, and it has Winkwell on it. So let's... I also need to actually clean up a couple of books that I'm... So just as well we use the metal for those. All right, let's see how the rest of the day goes. I think I can afford to I can afford to make the old wound now. Explore an old wound to awaken the violent resonances within. And actually, I don't even need to worry. I should have done this much earlier. Was it Edict's? No. I can never remember which one gives me Confounding Parable. See what the Sister of the Knot has to say about this. They say I don't have the right aspects. That'll do. All right, the other oh, damn it. I already have the Confounding Parable here. I should have double-checked what I was looking for. All right, well, that's like we should still be able to work with this. The other line, one of Samuel Savage's more thoughtful works, an allegorical play about the city Clarity, a city that is also a book, and the sentences which inhabit it. The Lord's proverbial and the Lord's disquisitional war in the streets of Clarity, while the punctuants get drunk on ink and supply the jokes, though by Savage's usual standards there aren't very many jokes. The final act sees the Lord's proverbial unsealing the city Clarity's gates to expel the population into the unknown. The formula that they use for the unsealing is a real one. It can be used with knock and preliminal meter to create a gate sign of power. Okay, so would have been good to use the old, the Confounding Parable here, but I need to use the Old Wound, and I can only use the Memory Satisfaction with Quenchings and Quellings. Oh, sorry, let's grab the rest of these. Introduction to the Histories. The 17th century mystic and antiquarian Claude Heursault describes divergent incidents in 5 major histories. The prologue warns at length about the iniquities of one Julian Cosley, a former colleague who Heursault now describes darkly as a worm of worms. It seems Cosley advised Heursault early in the writing of the book, but Heursault later became suspicious. Heursault identifies blood, silver, design, and the worms as the central axes of each of the histories, and claims the so-called second history is the true one. Key of Night, the deliberations leading to a manifesto of the Worms of Escale, as recorded around 1900 in the Bar Vienna in the cellar of the Hotel Ciervo in Noon. The Worms, all of whom use grandiose nom de guerre, like Citizen Knife and the Midnight Pilgrim, agree that all previous iterations of their movement have been feckless and treacherous, and agree that the return of the pre-human hours, the gods from stone, is the true way to end the tyranny of eternity. The Worms identify the Wheel, the Tide, the Flint, Sulochana, the Spider Door, the Excellency Nathobasis, and the Wickle Indistinguishable as the 7 necessary pentiments that must be returned to every history through the propaganda of the deed. This is an eccentric list and clearly a compromise. The process of threshing it out clearly exhausts all the participants who don't specify the necessary deed beyond a vague reference to the loopholes. And for some reason I seem to have overwritten what was in that. Not looking good for me to level everything up, but that's fine. We don't need to move heaven and earth to make all of this work. The Ascendant, the edgelong Dardash, boasts of her victories over her brother enemy Tarag in the days of the Shadowless Empire. Sweeter than wine, the nectar is the blood of my brother. We have raised up armies one against the another, and we have sated the Blackbone with the sinking of our ships. Dardash's boasting at length turns melancholy. An edgelong is half a dyad. She may not defeat her hated brother enemy without ending herself. She doesn't even want to, but she is aware, to her frustration, that she is a piece on the board, an axle on the ox cart, an essential part of the eternal engine of contention which the Lionsmith and Colonel use to sustain the world. The Viennese Conundra. Vandriel describes odd events in Vienna, the disappearance of children, epidemics of parasite activity, animal mutilations, nightmares of worms, the activities of a charitable organization, the New Legions, that funds the burial of the poor. She proposes peculiar connections between these activities. When the individual K attends the meetings, black dogs are sacrificed and quartered. When the element M is in attendance, black mares are found with their throats slashed. I propose that these sacrifices are not necessary, but that our Legion friends may consider them fitting. Herewith, diagrams of the mutilations. Medusa's riddle, then, I choose to render as what is not seen. There is another riddle, one that I have heard rendered as what may be lost. I will delineate some historic attempts to answer it. These are, in themselves, in some sense, sacrifices. And the sea does not regret. Eason Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. The sea does not regret the tide, Fekri writes, for when the tide is past, it leaves its traces on the sand, which traces are the sea's memory. Fekri is a keen fisherman and speaks glowingly of the fish suppers of Brandkrug. He also admits that his enthusiasm for the bounty of the sea has altered him, that before he came to Brandkrug he consumed only those things found in the earth. I was the greater thereby, but all of us give up what we were to become what we are. So I think what happened here is one of the intuition books had been misshelved, but I'll handle that in future. I'm already half an hour past where I want to be. So let's get these things leveled up. Even if I'm not going to be able to handle all of them, let's... It's very interesting to see the books that speak the most to you. I don't think the Moon books are bad. It's neat to see which things sort of really resonate with people. I'm no expert, but I'm no dabbler either. Okay, so I actually don't see this really working out for me here, but let's do our best. So confounding peril. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're short 1. So let's say I'll read Duresh of Quercum. Now, I know the collected Hush House lectures is an intuition. Yeah, I don't really know about these, but and I don't seem to have the Savage Hymn either, so that's another easy one for me to add. Okay, so the real question here is whether or not I'm going to have or get all of this in time for the evening. I think probably what I'll have the memories at the very least, so I'll be able to turn that into you know, I may wind up losing my tryst for the next morning, but that's actually not a major loss, seeing as I can, you know, just buy that back at the Sweet Bones. Alright, so we'll preserve the Wild Surmise for the evening. So I've increased, the skill is now level 3, its power aspects have also increased. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. So a hawthorn blank, a wood favored by the horned axe. Pilchards, pickle him alone, or they're pretty good on toast. Fragrant pears, soft in the hand. Carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. Pluck grapes from the vine. Now I completely forgot that there's actually storage space here, so haven't turned these grapes into eggs yet, but one thing at a time. So anything that I spend on the sweet bones here is not going to come back in time for... it's not going to come back in time for me to... Oh man, these are exactly 30 seconds. This is going to be a really interesting timer. So let's go for... Wolf Stories. Confounding Parable. So I have to do the Earth sign now. Salt. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. So let's see whether or not I can keep my tryst for tomorrow. Again, it's not a major deal if I can't, but I want to see if I can be good for the pause. Move gingerly while the pain lasts. And it fits fairly tidily in the mind as long as you turn it sideways. Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot the Noctonary ASMR. Unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless. We actually have more than enough. Attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers, name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. We have got against the sisterhood of the knot and the foulness of their depraved customs. Hieronymus Pseudo-Hypnotomachus wrote this furious screed about the sinister influence of the sisterhood of the knot on his own Church of the Unconquered Sun. Hieronymus claims that the powers served by the Sisterhood of the Knot made an arrangement. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him, as restitution for the destruction of the Axe's loved ones. Hieronymus's writing becomes incoherent with rage at this point. Hieronymus recovers his composure, eventually, to describe how the Thunderskin entered the Mansus through the Peacock Door. This, Hieronymus insists, is abomination upon abomination, but then the most abominable of doors has always been an abomination. And De Rasho Quercum, in English, the title translates roughly as The Account of the Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating, if haphazard, survey of the occult properties of every tree he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxus Baccata, the yew, called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. There they had long understood the Grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their flowers opens a different door entirely. This was not the great king's Mithridate, but one who has suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention more usefully that the minor ink of power Ugol can be brewed through the rites of the roots with the assistance of the aspect nectar. Alright, so I was a little too quick on the pause button here, so there we go. Skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. We should have more than enough in terms of memories now. The real question is whether or not we'll get this back before the end of the night. Not even close. Why did I even think that could work? So yeah, we're down the Trist, but honestly, that's not a major hardship there. All right, and another sunny day. So I'd say that's a pretty decent, we're at a pretty decent spot. So I still have some work to do with my Elements of the Soul. Now, I'm sitting on a lot of options as far as committing things to the Tree of Wisdoms. I've held off on doing so because if we wind up in a Numa, it may be useful for me to break up a couple of these memories still. But in terms of what I was trying to do for Birdsong, let me just see where we're at. So we've got Hill and Hollow, we've got Sky Stories. We need to put Wolf Stories up to 7. So we're going to need another 2 for that. And then Path and Pilgrim. Now, Path and Pilgrim is going to be a tough one. That's going to take a total of 6 scale or rows. On the preservation side, so we've got Menescate Reflections. The next one we would work on would be Stone Stories, and that's going to require 5 scale or nectar. So you're kind of seeing a bit of a pattern here. Scale is becoming the new element that everybody kind of wants. So a little bit like Moon, what I want to try and do here is try and find as many lessons that have the unique aspect. So for something like Stone Story, Scale, and Nectar, I want to try and find as many Nectar lessons as I can to start off with that. And essentially, I know that any of those scales that I'm using, those wild cards, I'm using those wild cards when I've already used up the things that might be a little bit more unique. So yeah, for preservation, the order will be Stone Stories, Tridesma Hira, and Edicts Inviolable. Now, Tridesma Hira, clearly I lost track of because I clearly can't do 5 more lessons there. What do we have? That needs to be 8, so that will only need 1 more. Edicts Inviolable will become 9. So that's just needs 6 more. Okay. And then we'll do Drums and Dances at some point with another 5. But of course, all of that is going to happen on another stream. I'm still writing October. Shame on me. All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. I am, again, sorry for the later starts, but I do appreciate that there are still people who watch this wonderful game. Quite a few more of you than I was expecting, actually. So let's see if I can find. Sadly, there's nobody else doing Book of Hours. Now, there's always a couple of people who are online who I can host, but let's just see what's online right now. Okay, nobody on Cultist Simulator either. So, let me take a quick minute and say thank you everybody for hanging out. And again, an early congratulations to Vanguard Master for getting your game out on out of early access in the next couple of days. And for those of you who like Book of Hours and you're looking for another streamer who covers it, I will just take a quick minute here and point out that Oswin Meow, who I've been sort of interacting with a little bit back and forth, I've really been enjoying catching her stream with Book of Hours because it's actually her first run through it, and it's a chance to sort of catch her have some original ideas, sort of learn some things for the first time in the setting, and that's always really exciting, particularly for somebody as thoughtful and as interesting as Oswin. So for those of you who are looking for more of that content, obviously I do this game quite regularly, but it's always nice to show some support to people who I like watching play this game. So I'm gonna raid Kilgore Trout. I know I'm actually just gonna take a quick second here. I'm gonna do a quick shout out to Benito. And the reason I'm doing that, I'm going to raid Kilgore Trout tonight, but Benito actually gave a nice raid for Book of Hours, and as much as I'd like to reciprocate, I think that they may be wrapping up reasonably soon. I don't know how long they normally stream, but I do know that Kilgore Trout goes quite late at night, so I'm just going to leave you in his capable hands. Oh, I still don't know how to spell Kilgore Trout. It also feels not bad to raid somebody who is named after a character in Kurt Vonnegut books if we're playing a game which is very heavy on the reading. But Kilgore Trout's a pretty interesting streamer. I did find him through the GOG channel. He is a big retro game streamer. Plays a lot of those games on original hardware, though, so he'll have an old, I guess AMD Athlon or Pentium, what are they called, MMX, or somebody who knows old hardware will be able to explain it better. But yeah, basically, for some games he does set it up on an old computer, which he's got hooked up to a streaming setup. It's pretty interesting, and also he kind of talks about the game as they first came out. It's a nice little bit of preservation of some gaming history. And I believe he's played the Thief games a few times through as well, so clearly it's a series that he likes. As far as me, I'm going to be back on Wednesday, more Book of Hours. Friday as well, but just a warning that next week is Remembrance Day for us, so I will not be streaming on Monday, and then for the following week I also won't be streaming Monday or Wednesday just because of prior commitments and also the local game dev meetup. So there's going to be a bit of a hole in the schedule for the next little while, and I wanted to try and get that news out as quickly as far in advance as I could. Have a lovely time in Kilgores. I'll see you all on Wednesday. Take care.